As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. Bum 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 must I go from rags to riches?
I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I apologize wholeheartedly for this.
Jimmy!
For all listeners using headphones, I'm really sorry about that intro.
I'm not.
I'm not either.
I'm not at all.
Tony Bennett isn't sorry either.
Yeah.
Tony Bennett's never apologized in his life.
Okay,
That's
not
confirmed.
true. That's not true at all.
Tony, text us or email us at
chroniccanon@gmail.com
Oh,
or
yeah.
follow us on Twitter.
We have no at Chronic Canon.
Yeah, at Chronic Canon.
We have no structure to this.
At all.
Whatsoever. Welcome. This is the Chronic Canon.
Yeah, I'm Frank.
I'm Jesse.
Brandon.
We're live in our ears, not in yours. We're smoking movies and we're talking weed.
Sure are.
And if you don't like heat,
Get the fuck out.
get the hell out of here.
Bye bye. If you've never seen it, that's okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But
for
if you
real.
actively dislike it,
You gotta go.
Bye
We're
bye.
sorry. We're
Yeah.
sorry. Well, actually, we're not sorry.
And if you're
bye.
still not abiding the stay-at-home orders, quarantine is still going on in some places.
We're not.
Abiding,
yeah, technically not.
abiding, not so much. Protesting though.
Yeah.
That's what we don't.
Yeah.
like.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
that's
yes.
annoying. Shut up. Go home. Stop
the
listening.
protests.
Yeah, the things are changing. I don't
Yes.
know.
Yeah, it's getting a little like not better, but they're just like you can go outside.
Looser.
Good luck.
Good luck. Yeah,
That's basically what it seems like it's summed up as.
it'll
It's
get
like,
bad
you know,
again. We'll all go back inside. We'll listen again, and then that'll just keep repeating until we're dead.
The second wave, the third wave, the fourth
forever
wave.
wave.
Forever wave.
The forever way.
They think it's gonna be like flu shots. You just gotta get one every year, like
Yeah.
a Corona shot.
Well, and I saw another thing that was saying that it acts like HIV and it will never leave your system if you get
Yeah.
it.
Woohoo!
That's exciting.
So new disease, everybody.
Absolutely. Yes.
New
You know, speaking of something that's just gonna stay in your system forever, you guys, what movies have you seen the most in your life?
Okay, that was a very impressive.
Yeah.
segue.
Very good. Those are clean,
Yeah.
concise.
Thank you.
I
thank
guess
you.
we lessen it by acknowledging it, but
Yeah. I don't give a
I
shit.
just wanted
It's
to.
okay. You know,
We gotta
you
give
guys
credit
know
where
I like
credit
my-
is due.
You guys know I like my praise.
Yes,
So I don't mind.
I wanted to vocally appreciate you.
Praise you all day long, Brandon.
Good,
Goodfellas.
Goodfellas.
Well, the movie we're talking about today.
Goodfellas is one of my most watched movies for sure.
Yeah.
I being Frank.
I'm Jesse.
Brandon.
Have seen it. I said 30 times, but now I'm thinking if I'm talking all the way through, it's probably closer to like 20, 15
Okay. It's like
to 20.
actually sitting down and
Yeah.
watching it front to back.
Or yeah.
Still
Just
a
like
ridiculous amount.
yeah, a ton.
Yeah.
I first saw this movie when I was like 12, but we can get into that later. Should I now? Doesn't matter. My dad loves it, and he's like, "Watch this." It was very
My
late
dad.
at
At
night.
12?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's like,
Had you
"Time-"
seen any Scorsese movies before? What was your first Sassy?
Oh.
Have we talked about that?
I can't be sure.
No, we have. We
We did say or
I've-
what our first Sassies were?
No, I guess
There's
we had
no
seen the ones
way.
we've
I
seen.
think
I don't think
I'm-
I've talked about.
I
like,
think
the
that I am
first.
confirmed Taxi Driver was my first Sassy.
See, no, I that definitely wasn't.
I imagine it would probably have been Goodfellas for you.
No,
After
Hours?
maybe The Departed.
Oh, okay.
That literally might be why.
Did you see
I
it in
have
theaters?
no, but as soon as it was on DVD,
Mm.
so 2006, so I would have been 10.
So you saw There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men in theaters in
Yes.
its original run
Yes,
at 11 years old.
yes.
Or 10, potentially, depending
no,
on
11
the
or
birthday
12.
release,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
End of the year.
It's fucking just like
He's fucking
preteen is sitting there listening to a guy scream about oil.
Oh, I loved it.
4'11" Frank. I'll drink your milkshake.
I thought it was the funniest
My
scene
boy!
ever.
I buried my child. I've abandoned my boy.
I remember being blown away. I remember feeling
like the fucking
score.
oil.
Yeah, the
rig?
gusher.
Yeah.
I
You were blown away like the oil rig.
Oh, now I see your joke.
Yes. I'm a
Sorry,
funny
I
guy,
missed
aren't
it.
I?
No.
Did it just spoil There Will Be Blood?
No.
But I did try to reference Goodfellas to no avail.
Yeah, well, let's keep moving. I don't know. Yeah, I see it. So maybe The Departed actually might have been my first. I can't be positive. I don't know.
That's
but
probably why you
Goodfellas-
love it so much.
I know. I do have a special connection
It
to
seems like there's a spot in your
But
heart for the sailor peg who lost his leg.
Is that a
Is there
reference
not?
to the movie?
Yes, that's a reference to The Departed. The craziest opening credits of Scorsese's career. Pulling the good time. 25 minutes in, it's just like, oh, Jesus.
You're
there's
right.
credits.
Wow, that's
Like,
right.
what the
it does
fuck?
take a minute to
That
do the
shit
credits.
blew me away the first time I saw it. I was like, I am a sailor pig. And I lost my leg. So anyway, movies I've
They
seen
never do.
the most.
So you're saying Goodfellas, and your first was The Departed.
Well, Scorsese.
For Scorsese, yeah. I think. I literally can't be sure. But to talk
Well,
about...
we know your first Scorsese was Wolf of Wall Street.
Yes.
And you're pretty sure it was Taxi Driver?
I'm
You
like
said?
almost
Okay.
positive.
I mean, Taxi Driver might have been it, too. Like, I literally don't know.
Because I think Goodfellas came later than. Oh, wait. I don't know, though, because I was in my old band like at age 12, like before I knew you, Frank, and I know that they all loved Goodfellas. So it is possible that Goodfellas was my first Sassy, now that I'm thinking about it. Like,
It's hard to recollect that far back.
yeah. As far
Back to
back as
those
I could
days.
remember, I don't know if it was Goodfellas or Taxi Driver.
I hate. Anyway, I don't hate you, but the movies I've seen the most, which was your original question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Goodfellas is definitely up there, but I'm pretty confident it's Die Hard. If I look at the course of my life,
Which tracks, too. That
you
makes
know,
sense.
I said like 100 times, and then I pause, and I'm like, okay, could it really have been 100 times? And then I pause, and I'm like, I think it very well could have been 100 times. I know that movie like in my heart,
Like multiple times a year for like every year since you've seen it.
like not anymore. That was all like in youth, like most of my viewings.
I think the only way you're gonna watch Die Hard that many times is in your youth. It's
It-
like, oh, this is
Very true.
badass.
I mean, it was the movie that changed me forever, where
And
I was
then-
like, oh, that. I want to do that forever. I was hopping around the couch just like, John McClane, this rules.
and then you got a little bit older, and you're like, wait a minute, is John McClane not nice to his wife? How does this work?
It's very
Are they getting
confusing.
divorced for a reason?
I did a scene. I wrote a scene in high school acting out what happens when he went home.
Is
did
it
that.
like the same thing you told me at work,
Yeah.
where it's like, she's still like, yeah, thanks, but I'm still divorcing you.
Yeah, basically, just like this doesn't just fix things.
You know,
like,
like
you're
Die
still
Hard-
an asshole.
Die Hard ends. It's not like you get the happy ending
Yeah.
for like a second, and then it's like, well, wait a minute. Hold
Also, how do you just like go to bed that night?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
on. Yeah,
Good
right.
night, honey. Like what
Sweet,
the fuck?
sweet dreams. You want to watch Seinfeld? I don't
Right.
know.
Shit that shit fucks with me when I think about it.
See, I imagine that she goes home alone, and he has to like stay back for like questioning and like answer all the
Right.
questions and be like a cop.
That's realistic.
And then he comes home in the morning, he crashes, they never talk about it, and it's back to the daily routine.
Fuck that, man. They weren't together at the start of the movie. That's a part of his plan.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah.
fucking Die Hard is
Die Hard.
definitely the movie.
Met
Like,
Bruce Willis,
you did?
kinda. Yeah, he signed my playbook. I
Oh,
gave it to my
that's-
mom.
That's right.
You
that's
shouted
right.
at him.
Yeah, but the crowd also helped me. Like they were like, "Oh," like I was like, "It's for my mom. She loves you." And they're like, "Oh, for your mom?" And they like all they all passed like the playbill for it.
That's
And
cool.
They could hear
he-
the
he, like-
genuineness.
He like grabbed it, then he looked up and did like a like a smolder, like minus the lips,
Classic.
just like an eye smolder.
Classic Willis.
And then
Yeah.
he gave it a sign and he handed it back, and I was like, "Sweet, she's gonna love this," and she did.
That's good.
good. I'm glad she did. What about you guys? Movies
I
you've
would
seen the
say, like, in more recently, like Zombieland. Like for the longest time, I always said that the reason Zombieland originally got taken off of Netflix was because I watched it every day. Like every
you
like,
overdid it.
like every day, like I would just turn it on because it was just like every second was entertaining to me. It just felt and I don't know, it spoke to me. Like I've mentioned in previous episodes
You have
that Zombieland has like a set of rules for like the survival of the world. And shortly after Woody Harrelson first gets introduced, they stop by this like antique shop, like this old Native American antique shop on their way on their adventure. And you know, Woody Harrelson's whole character arc is he's looking for Twinkies. You do find out he has a kind of a tragic backstory. His kids died from the zombies. But
Oh yeah, this is a spoiler-filled podcast for the movie we're discussing and other movies at your own expense.
sorry,
Yeah,
you
so
always
also, if
find
this is the
out.
first time you were listening, welcome. I would imagine this might be the first episode you could click on. Goodfellas is a pretty big movie.
It's a big movie. Welcome.
So,
Sorry, we're telling you like 12 minutes in.
Yeah.
But congrats.
So anyway, Zombieland. He's tragic backstory.
Tragic backstory, but right now all we know about him is that he's just looking for Twinkies, and everywhere he goes, he cannot find them. So he's frustrated. Stops by this antique store, takes his signature bat that he's been fucking beating the fuck out of zombies with, and he's like, "Listen, remember this? It's the little things that count." It's like their first like fun moment in the movie where they're having a good time and they're breaking all the shit. And I don't know, that's always stuck with me. Just like it's the little thing And I watch that movie every day. Other than that, I would say like definitely the Mighty Morphin's Power Ranger movie on VHS. I played that shit so much that the tape broke because
Nice.
I loved it so much.
Nice.
And then not by choice, but I saw Frozen at least like 25 times.
That's
Niece.
Niece.
Oof. That's a lot of times.
That's a lot of times.
A
Hey,
lot.
did you let it go?
I almost did. What about you, Scorsese?
Well, Martin Scorsese,
God damn it.
the movie that I probably could track as being the
Are you
one I've
taking my
seen-
name?
What?
Are you trying to take my name?
No, I'm just
You
trying
think
to
I
take
can
your
just call yourself
eyebrows.
Scorsese?
Scorsese, hey!
I hope when I'm an old man, I have his eyebrows. they got those starting, you know.
Yeah,
They're little-
I can see it. I can definitely see it.
Yeah.
They're a little thicker.
All right, so sorry, Martin Scorsese.
Okay, anyway, so Martin Scorsese's most seen movie of all time.
Number 5.
I would probably say, like, if I'm being realistic, It's a Wonderful Life. Because
I
that's
thought
a
you
movie.
only watched it once a year, though.
Well, that was a tradition that I started probably at age 14 because I started seeing it in theaters on my own, like being able to get like rides and stuff from friends as
Mhm.
opposed to just like my parents and shit. So I think that the fact that that movie was on constantly in my youth, like even as a 0-year-old, like all the way up through to 25, I've
Right.
definitely seen that because if you track 14 to 25, which, well, technically I haven't seen it at the end of this year, but tracked 14 to 24, it's 10 times.
Right.
And then before that, I had to have seen it at least 20 to 30 times.
Okay.
Just at home on the TV.
So just like My Departed, you got a special place in your hat.
Oh, definitely. But I feel like if we're talking about movie that I may have also seen the most times as a kid just by personally pushing the tape in
Mhm.
and running it back over and over and over again, probably The Goonies.
Oh, that also makes a lot of sense.
I, just like you, Frank, had my moment jumping across the couch with a
Yeah.
pirate hat on and a sword screaming, Captain Chunk!
You guys
I was,
both did
"There
that?
you go!
Apparently.
What?
He asked if we both did that. I was like, apparently.
Yeah, apparently so. Well, not different movies,
So the weird
but
thing
same reaction.
about my memory with Die Hard, though, is that I was home alone, but that has to be impossible. But I do remember people coming home, like my parent or sister or someone coming home as I was just like, Die Hard! And they were like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
I think maybe somebody was asleep upstairs, and I was just like, I'm watching this now.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Fucking rules. What about in theaters? Movies you guys have seen the most?
Oh, Dark Knight.
For sure.
I'm pretty positive because I saw it 8 times when it came out.
That makes sense.
It's crazy.
Good movie.
Couldn't get enough. But it was like the heat of my 8th grade self. So
Yeah, fair. Literally.
Hadn't
fair.
gotten the heat yet.
honestly, yes.
Yeah.
Does all the same things, but for like young people.
I guess
It's
I would
still
have
great.
to
No, it's
say-
for an adult audience too. I'm just saying like younger people can digest it easier because, oh, Batman, the
Yeah, that's-
Joker.
That's true.
I don't know. I
Kind of
think you
scary,
look,
though.
You look at that movie, you're supposed to be, oh, they're not that different. But I feel like as a youth, it's like, ha ha, fucking
Why
punch
does
'em.
Christopher Nolan insist that like every protagonist in his movies be like a walking blank canvas?
I got nothing.
That's
yeah,
all. Well, that's. I just wanted to
because
ask.
white
into
people
the
are
ether.
interesting.
I guess,
That's
but
all.
Christian Bale is the least interesting Bruce Wayne and the least interesting Batman. Fight me.
He's kind of bland.
Yeah,
When you really think about it,
he is.
I think he gets lumped in with the filmmaking of Dark Knight being so amazing.
Yeah.
And it pushing Batman to like this serious next level.
Batman
but-
is a prop.
Right.
basically.
Bale's not the reason.
No,
He does well.
and there's
And-
no like. I
and-
don't
I
feel
mean,
emotion in the movie. Like the Harvey
Yeah.
Dent stuff doesn't hit. Like
I've
fucking the Rachel stuff doesn't hit either, but I understand what it's supposed to be doing well enough that I'm like, okay, I can like go along with this and have a good time still. Dark movie though. Dark Knight.
Hey.
I guess
Sorry.
upon like review, I've always thought that like the Bruce Wayne moments were definitely the weakest out of the trilogy, and that the Batman moments were hype, but also that's just like as a fan of Batman, it's
Yeah.
like, that's hype. But I don't know. I guess like when I'm thinking about the actual performance of Batman, the only like modern day that I can like compare it to is fucking Ben Affleck, who does really bad.
Yeah.
So like I don't know. I'd take Bale over fucking him
I
any
was
day.
gonna say Keaton's good at doing both.
I didn't mind Affleck's Batman. I
I
didn't think he was that
thought
bad.
George Clooney was fine. It like finally added like some charm.
Well,
to
it's
the,
the
character.
movie itself that adds the craziness that everyone either hates or loves, ironically. But I think also Bale in Batman Begins is actually his peak as far as the performance and the
For sure.
pathos.
Well,
of the
it's the
character.
most about him.
Bruce Wayne,
I would say
yes.
that, yeah.
Narratively too.
And
I feel
Liam
like that's the
Neeson
movie
being
with
in
the
it.
most plot than
Mhm.
any of them.
I think that's my first Liam
Mm.
Neeson movie.
really
Yeah,
Not
Interesting.
Phantom Menace.
or Taken.
Phantom. No, oh, No.
Yeah, Qui-Gon Jinn.
He's Qui-Gon, baby. It's got to be
99.
Phantom Menace. Come on.
99. Okay, when
That's
did
when it came out.
But I didn't watch
Batman
my
Begins
first.
was 2005.
I didn't watch my first like Star Wars movie until middle school,
Oh, dip.
Wow. So then,
And
yeah,
then-
probably.
and then my dad caught me watching Revenge of the Sith, and he was like, hey.
What about Narnia? He's the voice of Aslan.
Oh, okay. Then actually, for real, it might be Narnia.
Well, the
which
first
is-
time you saw him.
Yeah.
First time I
was
saw
in
him, I
Batman
think was
Begins. First
Batman
time you
Begins.
heard him was in Narnia. And I will say, just because I did it and it was interesting, and I think I may even hold this opinion now, but I'd have to rewatch the movies, which I would. And I mean, if we do Nolan down the line someday, we'd have to. But when I went back to the theater to see the Dark Knight trilogy, the midnight show, The Dark Knight Rises was coming out. I did the whole gauntlet in theaters. I wasn't that excited for Batman Begins, and it popped the fuck off. I was like, whoa.
I'm curious.
got
to
all
see
the
this.
shit.
1,001 times better than I remember. Batman Begins and Dark Knight flew. They just fucking flew by. It was as if they never happened by the time we got to Dark Knight Rises, and then we got there, and it was the world's greatest slog and the weirdest reaction to the end of a movie I've ever seen. Like, everyone felt like they were supposed to be losing their minds, and you could tell that they were like restraining this like false standing ovation because they were so confused by what the fuck just happened.
So
he
I
didn't
didn't have.
die,
I mean, in my midnight screening, people literally were cheering and clapping, and I think I audibly booed because I
That's
was annoyed.
hilarious.
I loved the whole movie, but then the ending sent me into a fury.
That was
I
definitely
like,
still
Are you
in the
kidding
days.
Me? Kill him!
That was still in the days when I used to fucking hold on. Like, after walking out of a movie, I was really excited for, like, it was good. It was definitely good. You
Like
know it was
Force
good.
Awakens.
Yes. Oh, dude. After seeing Force Awakens with Frank and Brandon in Times Square, they both immediately, within like 2 minutes of it ending, are like, yeah, you know, problem after problem after problem after problem after
Because
problem.
we
after
were
problem.
realizing it was New Hope.
The
Yeah.
first 2 minutes was like, oh, this
We
was
were
dope.
all
This was
hyped.
dope. This was. Wait a minute.
And then I looked
Yeah.
at both of you and yelled in
You
the
did.
street. I was like, can't you just let me think it's perfect for 5 fucking minutes?
You did. I will never forget that moment. It was so funny. The tables had turned.
Literally, the freaking out about Star Wars, the last thing I would have ever thought.
It was awesome.
Great.
Motherfuck. It was
What-
just because Adam Driver. I really wanted to sell it for him.
Well,
Yeah,
he's
you were like talking up like Adam Driver just as an actor because I had never heard of
He's the
dude.
best.
he is the best, and he's amazing in
Can't
Last
wait to
Jedi.
get to him. We're coming at him.
Specifically, Last Jedi. I have him in my noms that year for best supporting actor.
No
Like
shit.
he takes that character and makes it good. And I'm
Okay.
like, okay, that probably makes Force Awakens actually better, knowing the trajectory. Like
I love
maybe
Force
that
Awakens.
wasn't.
Have you gotten to the
I hate you.
the new trilogy yet?
I'm gonna have a
No,
I hate you
on my
count
rewatch
on this
thing.
podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. Still got to do
Pop.
the last 5. Brandon, what's the movie you've seen the most in theaters?
I would say more recently Deadpool. It came out at a time where like I don't know. I felt like I was too old to like hang out at home, but like I also didn't have anywhere else to go. So like that's just what we did to hang out
I
with
think I
people.
saw that with you.
When it first came out, all the boys went. I'm like not like maybe not the premiere, but like the weekend of the
No, I
premiere.
think it was the open
I remember it being a Friday.
Because I remember it was R-rated. And I think that was everyone's like incentive to be like, all right, this one might be different or
Fair,
cooler.
yeah.
So I think we all did go and watch it, and
I
I ended
liked
up I ended up like really enjoying
Weird
it.
when I think about how many comic book movies you and I have actually seen together in theaters.
I mean,
Actually,
it was
quite
a
few.
decent it was a decent amount before you're like, fuck this, I'm out.
I know.
I'm glad I wasn't there for your one.
The last one that I did was Black Panther, and I was alone.
yeah.
Well, maybe there's been an outlier technically. If like
I
a
do
movie
think
that's
I-
not actually like a comic book movie in the traditional sense.
I
But
do
don't
think that now that some time has passed, when we eventually do Ryan Coogler, because I want to do Ryan Coogler, you're gonna like Black Panther.
I'm not going to be able to get past the things that I know I don't like about it.
Well, the things that you think you don't like about it, you're gonna like.
Okay, we'll
So,
see.
There's that.
So Deadpool.
So Deadpool, I've seen. I think I saw like maybe like 13 times in
Ooh.
theaters,
So many.
just because I don't know. It was so easy to like.
Yeah,
it's
that's
so easy to watch, and like I don't know. I felt like I could like not pay attention and still like retain it, especially after seeing it fucking like 10 times. So I would say like most recently, I put Deadpool right there.
And I liked it. I didn't like it as much the second time I saw it. I think I've only seen it twice.
Well, I
And-
think that movie definitely hinges on the first watch.
yeah. Where
Mm.
just almost shocking. Just like, oh, this is cool and different.
It is. It's definitely like pure like absurdism in terms of like it's like all right, like we can kind of run with this character and we're not necessarily confined by the rules of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So let's play on that as much as we can. So it's like everything it tries to, because I know it still follows the like superhero trajectory, but there are certain moments where it diverts against that, and I think that's what like made it cool for me. Where I was like, all right, cool. Like I feel like I'm getting a different experience from this as
Right on.
opposed to like, because I don't know, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been like a fucking like 12-year journey for me. So they do eventually, like, even though each film has its own merit, they do sort of like bog together in the end when you're like thinking about like the whole span of things. So, you know, when you toss in like another Marvel movie that with characters that I enjoy, you make it a little bit different. It was refreshing. So
It's
I
definitely
definitely spam that shit. And
I think the
then
second watch, I realized it does follow the same trajectory, like almost to the T. I was like, oh, God damn it. It's the same, even though it's different.
yeah,
God damn it.
They just throw a few fucks in,
Right.
and some blood.
and kill people.
Yeah. And it's
But-
still
and
like
I think,
decent.
I think that Deadpool was important to be like, all right, yo, we can make R-rated superhero movies for a wider audience now.
Right.
And because of that, we got Logan, which I am happy about.
That's fair. And I actually think in theaters, if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember if there was something in my youth. I'm pretty sure Arrival is the movie I saw the most in theaters, which was only 4 times. I feel like I don't hit the theater that many times. And if not Arrival, then I think Prisoner of Azkaban. But I can't remember if I saw that 3 or 4 times. But I was hype on that Harry Potter train as a small boy, especially that one. I was like, run it back. Give me more Quran. Just kidding. I did not think that as a child.
which movie?
Azkaban.
Okay, I thought you said Chamber of Secrets in my head.
No.
I was like, wait a minute.
I mean, I wore those VHSs down. The
Yeah.
first 2, watched those.
the first 3,
Tons.
man.
I will say,
After theaters, I don't think I ever watched Azkaban again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Azkaban was my favorite, but then I
Ask-
got to Goblet of Fire. I was like, ooh,
Yep.
no good. And
I
then I just stopped.
Azkaban is still, I read all the books, seen all the movies. Azkaban is still my favorite book and favorite movie. Just
Nice.
like the whole
Time travel stuff.
the arc of that stuff, the time travel stuff. Fucking
Come on.
Werewolves.
It's also the
The
one that's
Dementors.
most focused like on the actual school aspect of Hogwarts. It's like, oh yeah, these are
dark.
students.
Right.
Hermione Granger's working 24 hours a day to fucking get all of her schooling done.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And just like the introduction of Sirius Black and everything.
Oh, Gary
I-
Oldman.
I
Yeah.
love Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah.
It's fucking dope.
Real
Good
good.
stuff. Arrival, love it. Haven't seen it since the theater still. Should probably rewatch it someday.
I remember you coming back home after seeing that and just like fucking
That
the
was-
look of bewilderment.
That was one of like your revelation movies where you started talking about time.
Yeah.
You started trying to write with both your hands, like front to back.
I think it's the secret to evolving our brains. Think
Going
about it, man.
ambidextrous?
No, you're right.
No. Writing, if the left hand and the right hand are writing simultaneously to meet in the
Moving
middle.
towards each other. Interesting.
I
So,
think
like,
if
you would have to have already the whole thing formulated in your mind and know.
What you're going to write.
you
Yeah,
would have to,
interesting.
because anytime you think, you're thinking one word at a time. This is the next word I'm going to say. If I
Right.
knew that was my whole phrase, boom, and you could somehow, that's the secret. That's the secret. You know what else is the secret? Just kidding. It's not a secret. Goodfellas rules.
Yes.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't
I
know
was-
how to transition
well, you know,
out of that.
I was going to say also, just to clarify something, that I actually think, weirdly enough, It's a Wonderful Life is also my most seen movie in theaters, if I've seen it 10 times.
That's hilarious.
Yep.
Actually, yeah, it has to be yours.
So It's a Wonderful Life is the movie I've seen both the most times and the most times in theaters.
perfect. That's a perfect
Takes the cake.
summation.
Thank God.
To rewind slightly, you can cut out my last bit. To rewind slightly, Deadpool, I think, is a movie that I instantly thought of as owing a lot to Goodfellas.
Yeah.
I feel like today's movie in our Scorsese journey, which I don't think we actually ever said, that we go through the movies of Martin Scorsese right now. Like,
yeah,
that's the
no,
series
not
we're on.
officially. That's true. We are
So-
going through Scorsese's narrative fiction work.
Yeah. And I think Goodfellas...
Well, it's historical fiction in this case.
Heyo. I think Goodfellas is a movie that has impacted the culture probably the most out of all his movies to this day. And I think something like Deadpool wouldn't exist without it, the way that the voiceover functions, you know?
Yeah.
And I like the whole, I feel like that, obviously Goodfellas was not the first movie to be like, here's my life story, but it was I think, the first one to popularize it, where it's like constantly breaking the fourth wall while also being like hyper violent and fast paced, and be like, look at this scene in my life. And it's everything short of, no, it does do the freeze frames, even the freeze frames.
Yeah.
Like, in this moment I knew, never rat on your friends, or
Yep.
whatever he fucking says.
You mean
So
that
I
part with De
think-
Niro where he's like, never rat on your friends?
No, not
and
that part.
always. I can't remember what the full bit is.
I
but-
can't either, verbatim.
And that was a terrible De Niro.
It was awful. I was gonna let it go, but
But it's that
Yeah.
it's that enunciation, like he's got his voice up.
never
here.
rat on it. I don't know how to do a De Niro.
I will say, now that you said that, Karen's character in Goodfellas is a lot like Vanessa's character in Deadpool.
Yep.
Just like I'm with you, ride or die, but also like stop fucking bullshitting around. Like
Yeah.
you have to
Yes.
be honest and real with me.
Do you
In
know off the top if the real Henry Hill and Karen are still together?
Doubt it.
I don't think so.
I would
Did
imagine
she?
not.
Did she go with him at the end?
Yeah, I think they're still together.
Well, no, it
I
suggests
always did, but I don't think so.
Well, I know he goes into witness protection.
if anything,
Right.
she definitely still also has to, but maybe not with him. But I think she's with him because
They-
at that point,
No, because at the end, the FBI guy's saying, like, we don't care about you. You don't have to go. We just need him. And then he says, like, you know, they're probably going to get you if you don't, but they never show her. I just always assumed they went with him. But for some
me
reason,
too,
this
until
last
you just
watch,
put
I
that
was
up.
like, is that part of it? Like, now he's just alone in witness protection? So I don't know.
Well, do you guys know the real story of Henry Hill and
not
what
so
happened
much.
after the end of Goodfellas, the movie?
No.
sold his life's work as a book.
Well, he eventually does that, but he goes into witness protection because I remember thinking it interesting that there's so many interviews with Henry Hill that exist. And it's like, how are there interviews with Henry Hill if he went into witness protection? Well, because in witness protection, under his new identity, he kept committing crime.
Really?
So he was fucking tossed out of witness protection. They kicked him out. And so then the only way he could make money legitimately was to sell his life story. And I know he's dead now, but I've seen a lot of people talk about how they thought it was, you know, sort of pathetic in a way that his entire life after the glory days is just recalling the glory days. And that's it.
That's most people's lives, baby.
Most mobsters for sure.
Him and Karen got divorced in 1989, and then the next year he married Kelly Honore.
Interesting.
I don't
Wait,
know
89
when.
they got divorced?
Yep, they were married from 65 to
Goodfellas
89.
ends in 80. So that means that they were together in witness
Okay.
protection.
And then
That makes sense.
and from 1990 to 1996, he was married to Kelly Allure.
Interesting.
And then looks like he was a bachelor up until 2012 when he died.
Right.
A day after his birthday. Good for him.
Well, to get to that, the story
for
of Henry
him.
Hill was written into a book called Wise Guys
Yeah.
by Nicholas Pileggi, who then went on to co-write the screenplay for Goodfellas with Martin Scorsese. And I know that he was inevitably the one to change the title to Goodfellas. It was originally just Wise Guy, but then they changed it later.
The woman who like the real Karen, like looks just like the actress. It's kind of crazy.
That
Let me
is
see.
wild. That's pretty uncanny. Lorraine Bracco looks a lot like the real Karen.
What do you mean? Look at her.
I am.
I feel like
The essence is there.
Pull up Lorraine Bracco. You're going to see she looks nothing like that.
I know you just said pull up Lorraine Bracco, but it really sounded like you said Paul Blart Mall Cop.
pull up Paul Blart Club. I'll show
Sure.
you.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
She's in it.
Okay, this is off to a great
Yeah.
start.
Anyway,
I know at the time that Pileggi's book was like a huge deal as being like like hailed as like one of the first true insights to what mob life was really like.
well, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Pileggi involved in law enforcement?
I'm not positive. I thought he was a reporter.
It's possible that that was it. But
Like
he
a
was
crime
involved. He was
reporter.
involved in some inside job beforehand, to where he kind of knew the ins and outs of what was going on, like the mechanics of everything,
yeah,
on
he-
top of just the history.
He was a journalist, but his focus was on like crime
The
and
mafia
stuff.
and stuff. Okay. Pileggi also co-writes Casino with Scorsese later,
Mhm.
which I mean makes sense. They're practically sister movies.
They are very, very similar, which was my problem with it years ago when I saw Casino. But
It's taking it to a more political place than Goodfellas, I think, at the end of the day. And then I think it also focuses way more on the relationship elements between its three characters and building on that than Goodfellas does. It also just takes more time with the narrative, which I think is also not... It's a personal issue with Goodfellas that I have where I almost think it ends too early. But I know that's something we'll talk about later. Anyway, Pileggi gets with Scorsese. They write this script for Goodfellas. Scorsese makes Last Temptation of Christ and falls out of grace with nearly the entire world. Theaters are bombed that play Last Temptation of Christ. People are up in arms. Christian groups are up in arms. It is a big deal. Scorsese becomes a household name virtually because of this, and it's like he's a form of the Antichrist on Earth. It's kind of wild when you look back at the time. Like, I've seen SNL sketches and stuff that reference it, like, just because it was pop culture stuff at the time, and it was definitely talked about a lot, more than I would have expected anyway.
really,
Yeah.
I did not know it made it to like that point.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the most insane jump to go from something like Last Temptation of Christ into Goodfellas, which is just the most assured piece of filmmaking he's made up to this point.
I mean, it's okay. I think it's a very important, probably the most important movie in Scorsese's career. And it's interesting that it is like the halfway point if we're looking to right now.
It literally is.
And it's because, and I think it is the only movie that could have followed Last Temptation. Because what are the two things that have always been on his mind
Jesus
since
and
the beginning? Right. The two halves of his life. Before he was a filmmaker, he thought he was going to be a priest, but he also always thought he could fall in with the crime people, which is what Mean Streets was supposed to be. Yeah. Which obviously I think Goodfellas
interesting how it seems like Last Temptation is his update of Boxcar Bertha and Goodfellas is his level up of Mean Streets.
Right. And
2 and 2.
We talked about that to see if it just keeps
like you want to see if it's reflecting.
Well, if it's not only reflecting, but he's like taking the material and then amping it up and making it better.
Because of it's not called Sacrifice. Silence in Last Temptation was another one that you guys said.
The Irishman as well. Yeah. And the Wolf of Wall Street.
Wow.
Too, because you can count that with Casino.
Oh, sure.
He doesn't have an age of innocence. I know, he doesn't have an age of innocence. The Killer of the Flower Moon is definitely going to be a weird outlier.
Well,
maybe.
Hopefully.
As of this podcast, it is official that Apple has bought the production rights to The Killer of the Flower Moon.
So how are they going to release it? Like Apple TV?
Yeah, Apple has a streaming service through Apple TV,
I'm
sure it's going to get a theatrical run because Scorsese enforces it.
Paramount's still a partner. They're not out of the picture.
They dropped it, you said, because DiCaprio wanted to switch roles from protagonist to antagonist?
I think that could just be business hearsay, like insider bullshit.
Possible.
Because, like, the Django made so much money and DiCaprio was a villain.
That's true.
So I don't know why that would sway them from funding the movie.
But
unless that means De Niro's the lead. And in that case, they might think De Niro's not a moneymaker.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
The Irishman made no money.
It was barely in theaters.
But it played well on Netflix.
Right. I don't know. It's all speculation at this point. We'll have to find out.
True.
But anyway. I think this is an important movie because it is following up that, like, it's like you said it last week in the crude way, but whatever. He finally got to fucking with temptation. He's like, all right, let's talk about Jesus. Let's talk about my spiritual crisis.
Yes.
Cool. Now let's talk about the other half of my identity.
Which is a little more fun, too. It's almost like going from Raging Bull to King of Comedy.
Yeah, definitely.
Where he needed a breather, but at the same time, I don't know how you're breathing while making this movie because it is going constantly.
And I also think it's his, like, biggest flag of, like, I'm a filmmaker. I'm here. This is my legacy.
Yes.
Now canonized forever. Because even upon release, it was like a hit and a critical darling, like getting on most top 10 lists, getting nominated for Oscars. It's viewed as one of the biggest Oscar snubs of all time. People still cite that to this day.
What won that year? Dances with Wolves? Still never seen him, but Jesus Christ.
I mean, I remember it being good, but nothing compared to fucking Goodfellas.
Yeah.
And it is cited as one of the biggest things that, like, regrets of the Academy, whatever.
Right.
So I think, and it's interesting to look at the rest of his career. It feels like from here on out, he kind of says fuck it and is experimenting. It feels like everything has been building up to Goodfellas to be like, here's everything I stand... Temptation and Goodfellas, I should say. Here's everything I stand for. Here's me at the height of my activity and power and prowess as a filmmaker, and now I'm going to run off and do whatever the fuck I want.
I mean,
and he's a household
name
forever.
Is like literally a box of fireworks all getting lit up at once.
What year is Goodfellas?
90.
So he's been making movies since 67?
Yeah, so 23 years.
Damn.
23 years into his career, he makes what is arguably his still most revered film.
He puts his foot down.
I think easily. This is definitely
this and Raging Bull.
Taxi Driver.
And Taxi Driver. Those are the three.
And they cycle out in people's minds,
right.
I think. But Goodfellas definitely seems to be the most consistent, kind of like we talked about with like Whiplash, where like it's most liked across the board, where there's more disparaging opinion across the board for Taxi Driver or Raging Bull.
I would say more so than the other two. Goodfellas is more even in terms of how it's received by audiences and by critics. I feel like
definitely
people really like, the critics loved Raging Bull, but like it had like, I don't know, like the audience was so, and same with Taxi Driver. Taxi Driver was like a slow burn. Like it took a while for like the world to be like, yo, this shit slaps.
Scorsese learned how to make a damn good pop song. And he made the perfect one for the time.
Which I definitely think Goodfellas is in movie form.
The equivalent, yes.
Yeah. He said he wanted to begin Goodfellas like a gunshot and have it get faster from there, almost like a 2.5-hour trailer. think it's the only way you can really sense the exhilaration of the lifestyle and get a sense of why a lot of people are attracted to it. And I think that is like the perfect summation of what Goodfellas is and why it's still so prevalent in modern like movie culture.
Yes.
And not even movie culture, pop culture.
And
like
I think
everything.
I think it's interesting that Scorsese does give De Niro the first handoff of the baton as far as I'm going to give you the mob cliche for the rest of your life. De Niro, particularly in Mean Streets.
Mhm.
De Niro then goes into Godfather 2 the next year. Decade later, goes to Once Upon a Time in America with Leone and Pesci, and then 6 years later, they're in Goodfellas, which I think cements De Niro's iconic persona as a mob guy.
And it cements Scorsese.
And Joe Pesci, no doubt.
I mean, people to this day talk about Scorsese as if he only makes mob movies.
That's
And
true.
he's literally made like 3, 4 now, if you count the with the Irishman.
Yes.
Departed, Goodfellas, Mean Streets, and Irishman. Are
I
there
also-
any other Casino.
Yeah.
God damn it, I forgot about Casino. Okay, so
5.
5
You
out of
won't
25.
after we watch it again.
So that's a fifth of his movies are mob movies.
Yes.
And yet that's all he's usually pegged as when people think of him on like an instantaneous like
And that is specifically because of Goodfellas. He
Yeah.
just fucking doubled down with Casino later. And not saying that that's a bad movie, because I theoretically may prefer Casino, but I'm gotta see when I watch it again. I can see Frank shrugging right now. It's
it's
happening.
fine. It's fine.
Anyway,
It's just absurd.
I'm sorry.
Absurdity.
I like De Niro in the lead, but he's also amazing in this. And I feel like he's not given enough credit for his performance. in
It's
this
because
either.
he's subdued. He's letting Liotta and Pesci shine.
That's true.
It's like the first time De Niro's taking like kind of a back seat. He's definitely a supporting character.
yes.
Obviously.
It's his first time taking a backseat after officially becoming like Scorsese's guy. 'Cause,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
as Johnny Boy, he's sort of like contained in the background,
Yeah, he's
like a
he's-
chaotic entity that's
I mean,
slowly
that's
pushing
true.
its way
That's true.
forward.
Jimmy isn't as chaotic as him. The Johnny Boy surrogate is definitely Tommy, but like fucking Jimmy goes a little crazy by the end too.
Well,
He's
it's
a
just
little
like
unpredictable.
paranoid.
when Jimmy goes crazy, it always takes me by surprise. Like when
Right, yes.
when he goes and shoots the guy in the trunk, I'm like, oh shit, Jimmy,
Yes.
thought you were the cool one.
Get
Which
the job
is-
done.
How the movie starts.
Before we run down the plot, though, I just want to point out, too, that it's kind of wild how quickly the influence of this movie affected every movie that came out after it,
Mm.
even movies that weren't mob movies. You could just feel something different in every movie that came years later. And I mean, fucking Boogie Nights being the most obvious.
Oh yeah. Well, that
Example.
was 7 years later.
Yeah, I know,
Or
but
8.
think about it that way. Like, when can you say a movie? Well, I guess we've always talked about the idea that every year there's sort of the same movie that comes out twice.
A lot of times studios seem to do that.
Like Full Metal Jacket Platoon.
right.
Can't think of any
Um,
other examples off the top right now, but I know we've come up with them.
I know. Mission to Mars and Red Planet
Yep.
is one I think of.
The competing studio movies.
Right. They
virtually.
just they're like, okay, movie in space, we got one too.
Marvel and DC are essentially the same thing also.
Right. That's the
Marvel's
modern.
much better.
It's like the battling
course,
things.
but-
But thinking about Boogie Nights, that's a movie that is specifically just influence. It's not trying to, like, I mean, it is inadvertently ripping it off because they are practically the same movie
They are.
for intents and purposes, but it doesn't apply a lot of the same things thematically and narratively other than the betrayal
It's
and
actually
the family thing.
Goodfellas plus
Actually,
Raging
no,
Bull.
that is the same. What the fuck is
Yeah.
wrong?
No, they're identical.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of it feels like a cheap sophomore movie.
I'm a
Sorry
dummy.
to all you Boogie Nights fans, but
It's a very well done
it's good.
remake.
Not my favorite.
Dirk Diggler's a funny name.
But that's not what we're talking about today.
Big bright shining star.
We talking Goodfellas. Well, I mean, what other movie? I mean, I already have said this, whatever. But of like the last 30 years of movies or whatever, like this, Pulp Fiction, The Matrix, and like
The Social Network.
that's not influential though.
I think it did define a certain type of filmmaking over the course of the 2010s.
I really think people like what? What is it? Can you draw any other things to it? People say this all the time.
I
and I'm
think-
like,
I
I think
think
you
it's-
just put an air of like, oh, we can make serious movies about modern things.
Ironically, I think it leans more into
That's
TV
it.
when I really think about it.
Okay,
Like,
that's fair.
And Fincher even has a say in that. But I
Right.
think like you look at things like Succession and God,
I be-
mean,
I buy
fucking
that, actually.
Sorkin has done other things too, even since then. But I mean, like in the lexicon, you can feel an influence from that kind of filming and the
Sure.
fast talking. Even Fincher adapts it in every other movie he makes.
That's
every
fair.
character speaks at rapid fire. He like
I
can't
mean,
slow himself down.
I just I don't think that's as culturally seismic as
not
like,
as Goodfellas.
those four.
If I'm gonna still be riding on my superhero train, I would say the first X-Men. set a precedent
Definitely.
for how we would.
Or would you
once-
call it Dark Knight? Even might have actually. That's what changed
See,
it to the modern.
I always
superhero.
said that
And Iron Man,
Christopher
same
Nolan, not just ruined. I say Christopher Nolan ruined the DC cinematic universe.
He did.
Like he fucked it up.
Set the
'Cause
bar
now-
too high.
Now every single DC movie that's
Well, it's like-
coming out for the most part is like, all right, we're gonna be gritty. Because
Right.
Marvel is definitely riding on like the
Spider-Man.
the poppy like happy camp where it's like, oh, we got jokes and then we have some serious elements. So like DC, obviously not wanting to follow like the same line as that, tries
They
to
have
flip it.
been though. They
Yeah,
realized
no,
that they were fucking up.
Yeah, with more recently, like Aquaman,
Birds of Prey.
The new Wonder Woman.
the Birds of Prey, and then that Wonder Woman like 1989 or something that's about to come out.
The sequel.
So they're definitely starting to like brighten things up and try to make it a little bit more campy. And I actually didn't mind Aquaman, but it's like I want them to give up on trying to make some sort of cinematic universe. But X-Men as
It doesn't
like
need to be 2 hours and 40 minutes or whatever it is.
I would put X-Men over The Dark Knight just in terms of setting the precedent as to what like superhero movies can be. Like
Okay.
that we can put superhero movies in the box office. I mean, honestly, I could say X-Men, but like Hugh Jackman.
That's
Like that we can give actors like these kinds of roles and that they can become like staples. Like it doesn't just have to be
Well, there
like,
are Western
typical action
stars, or
movies.
like our John Wayne. Like it's the same equivalent.
Right.
There are
Yeah.
icons.
So
Exactly.
But no matter what, nobody's disputing that Goodfellas belongs in that conversation of most influential things,
Of course,
of modern
Yeah.
times.
it was, and not just movies, but pop culture in general.
Yeah.
Like everything was affected by
It's an
Goodfellas.
important movie.
It's a movie that I've literally heard about like my whole life. I've known about like what Goodfellas was. I just hadn't seen it before.
It's unbelievable that you never saw it prior to this Chronic Canon podcast.
I don't know. A lot of movies that I watched have been like put in front of me where I'm like, oh okay, like I watched this.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I got a lot of blind spots. We'll get into that later.
But regardless, from seeing Irishman, I was definitely jazzed to get to this movie with you because I had a feeling that it would pop off at least in some sense. And I find your reaction to it interesting. We'll get into your deep reaction later. But for now, I think it's best to get the ball rolling
Mhm.
with the car.
Yeah, the basically cold open
Yeah.
of the three of them driving in the car and then pulling over to
Silent. It's quiet.
A
You just hear
very-
the sound of the car. Everyone's sleeping.
What
Everyone's
the fuck was that?
Yeah.
A very
Jimmy,
pretty.
did I get a
Ray
flat?
Liotta. Ray Liotta's a very pretty man. Like I don't want to use the word handsome. Pretty.
Sometimes.
I was
He's
gonna
got
say
nice-
he's got some weird.
No, he's one of those people who, as a youth, like was really, really pretty. He
Mhm.
didn't grow into ugly. He grew into like terrifying to me. Like
I mean-
the older version of Ray Liotta with his silver hair, he just looks so menacing. And maybe it's because of Place Beyond the Pines, but in that movie, he sent chills down my spine and made my butthole pucker.
It's interesting that Goodfellas seems to be the movie everyone associates Liotta with, but because I didn't see Goodfellas before I saw Wild Hogs, I always associate him with the Del Fuegos.
I
Okay,
always
what's
forget.
crazy is that I have seen Wild Hogs before this and forgot that Ray Liotta was a part of it.
And
I
he's
remember
also terrifying.
I
in it,
remember-
at least when I was a kid.
Martin Lawrence and like I
William
don't-
H.
not-
Macy.
Not Vince Vaughn, the other one, John Travolta.
Yes.
John Travolta.
Tim Allen.
The other one.
John Travolta and Vince Vaughn are two actors that like always swapping in my head.
That's so
Oh,
odd.
Isn't it weird?
the two of them?
Yeah.
I watched part of Wild Hogs recently thinking I'd get a fun laugh. It has not aged well.
No.
It's still funny in all
I
the
went
wrong
to bed.
ways.
I said I'm not doing this, and I fell
the
asleep.
Kyle Gass scenes are still fun.
I don't even remember him being in.
He sings at the chili contest.
Ray Liotta's kind of weird looking. I don't know, man.
What
Like
do you mean?
sometimes he's pretty, but sometimes I'm just like, are you ugly? So sorry if you're listening, Ray. Like, look at this picture from the year before Goodfellas.
Oof.
It's kind of ugly.
Not good. Why is his head open?
Well,
Is that Field of Dreams? Is he in Field
no,
of
no,
Dreams?
I think that's 8 Men Out.
Oh.
Or maybe it's Field of Dreams. The fuck if I know. I've never seen either.
Yeah, like he's very pretty.
That's nice.
I'm
don't
sorry
know.
we can't
And
give
this-
the audience visual references of these photos.
and
Just,
Just
Google,
Google
search
Ray Liotta 1989.
Okay.
That's what
I
I'm
think
looking
in
at.
the movie Goodfellas, they do a good job of like slicking his hair back and just making sure he always. Okay, I'm sorry.
He's not ugly, but sometimes maybe.
I like that.
But he's good. He's very good
he
in
does.
this movie,
He does.
actually.
He does awesome. And like, what is it? Do you guys know his
He
career?
carries the whole thing. Of course he's good.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. This movie is full of.
If
heavy
he
hitters.
wasn't good, Goodfellas wouldn't be
Yes.
as good as it is.
He's the silent hero.
True.
Yeah.
True. True.
Like
He's
he
our
gets
straight man.
he gets no credit. when people talk about Goodfellas, they never fucking talk about Ray Liotta.
I didn't know he was in it.
Well, I
Yeah.
think it's hilarious, and I think it's only
Yeah.
because Bobby D and Joe Pesci are so iconic.
Right.
Obviously, Pesci winning the only Oscar that this movie gets nominated, or wins the only Oscar of the how many nominations it had? I believe 6.
No, I think it's more than that.
Really?
Let me
I
count.
mean, I know
That is
Best Picture, Best
fucking-
Director was in there.
Let me run it down. Oh, I think you're right, actually. So, yeah, Pesci won supporting. It was nominated for Picture, Supporting Actress, Director, Adapted Screenplay, and Editing. So that's 1, 2,
Dude,
3,
the editing
4,
in
5.
this
So you were
movie
right,
is
6.
fire.
6, cool.
The editing in this movie is absolute. What beat it?
Well,
What beat
I
it is
think,
editing.
I
on
think
fire.
this is Thelma's best job so far.
This is the first time in a movie, in at least in Sassy's movies, where I've like noticed like the edits, where I'm like, yo, this is
to
they're,
create
they're fucking popping off on
to
this
create
shit.
that like gunshot effect and that rapid fire. It's like that's more her than him.
They're neck and neck, but I still think Raging,
Raging
Bull
Bull?
is her crowning achievement thus far.
I think it's close for sure, but I,
I
don't
think
know,
that her
man.
editing gets more
Goodfellas-
emotional in Raging Bull than it does here.
Sure, but that's a more emotional movie.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that personally, I value that more. So obviously, I choose
Dances
that.
with Goddamn Wolves won best editing.
You're
That's so
fucking
nuts.
kidding.
What is
No.
that?
It's a movie about a white man getting
Saving
in with
Native
the Native
Americans.
Americans.
Yeah.
What do you?
It's
of course.
Avatar.
It's the last of the Mohicans.
No, because he was already with them. I
Mike-
don't like that movie.
Michael Mann is more
I
progressive.
thought you said that it was like okay.
No, first half's garbage, second half rules. So,
Anyway,
like literally garbage. I wanted to turn it off. I was like, do I have to watch this? And then it got really good out of nowhere. I was like, oh, dope.
director's cut, right?
So
I don't remember.
I gave you the copy.
Then
correct?
yes.
Then yes.
I just assumed I rented it.
So
I
Henry
don't know.
Hill is driving the car with Jimmy Conway.
Wait,
Yeah.
wait,
in
wait,
the
wait,
s-
wait,
in
wait,
the
wait.
shotgun
Let him wait.
or Tommy.
What's like Ray Liotta's career before this movie? Like, what
Not
was
much.
He was in
he getting
something
much?
Something
Wild.
wild. Yeah, he's the
That was
bad
his-
guy in that.
That was his breakout movie.
He's really good in it too.
He literally comes in like halfway through this movie and just takes it over, like both character wise and performance wise and plot wise. Like he just all of a sudden he's like a ex-con who's like, I want my girlfriend back from this guy, and so he's just like, I'm here now, and it's just like whoa, and it made a big splash and impression. And he basically was everybody was like, who's that guy? Like we should get him in things. And then Goodfellas is obviously when he popped off. But basically after Goodfellas, I think he kind of never capitalized. It was Field of Dreams. He's in Field of Dreams. He's
Wow.
Shoeless Joe Jackson.
No shit.
Shoeless Joe from Hannibal Mo.
Fucking
Damn Yankees.
the worst.
So yeah, his Something Wild was his breakout. It looks like he did like a couple movies I've never heard of and mostly TV. And then his breakout was Something Wild. He was in Field of Dreams and then Goodfellas.
Wild.
And then after
Something
that,
Wild.
after that, I don't recognize most of these movies. Like he definitely never hit a point like Goodfellas. I think nobody knew what to do with him, and then he started playing villains, and he became like what his role in Place Beyond the Pines is. His like typecasting. Like Ray Liotta plays the bad guy,
The intimidating bad guy.
the
now.
creepy smile, like like that's my Ray Liotta now impression. I think Killing Them Softly is probably the best subversion of that.
Oh man.
'Cause you
That's with Brad Pitt, right?
Yeah, you assume he's gonna be that, and there is one of the hardest scenes I've ever watched is him getting the shit kicked out of him.
I don't remember that scene at all. I
In the
barely remember the movie.
rain?
I've only seen it once.
It's
and
like
when
one
it
of
came
the
out.
most brutal beatings I've ever seen.
I
want to
watch it again. I want to watch it again.
Up.
Like
I
90
do-
minutes.
I saw just like the cover. I don't think it was the actual poster, but on Letterboxd I saw the cover of Killing Them Softly, and it was like Brad Pitt with a shotgun.
Yeah,
yes.
And I was like, oh, I don't know what the fuck this is about, but I want it.
I
like-
think about it literally every week.
the
It's
final
so weird.
monologue will make your head explode.
Fuck you, pay me.
Hey, you know what else? Fuck you, pay me.
Yeah, that's it. Fuck you, pay me.
That's in this.
Yeah, nice.
It's both.
Everything's connected.
Yes, we're going back to
All
Goodfellas.
crime movies are the goddamn same.
Basically,
So they're
especially when
f-
Ray Liotta's in them. So
They're driving the goddamn car.
all of a sudden we hear a.
They pull
what
over.
the fuck is that?
They open the trunk and they ice an already basically dead man by it's screaming the violence from the get-go.
Yes.
Joe Pesci stabs him over and over, and then De Niro starts shooting him.
So ridiculous.
I think he unloads his entire chamber. It's
Something
like a
like that,
revolver.
yeah.
So I'm pretty sure he shoots like 6 shots.
Which apparently I've read in real life, Jimmy didn't shoot him. It's just Tommy. stabbing him in
But
the real
I
the real
think
story.
Scorsese wanted to start from the get-go being like, this is what you're in for.
Yeah.
Just like literally get ready.
Yep.
And then we have like the most iconic moment in movie history, maybe.
It's up there.
Ray Liotta slamming the trunk. Or ever since I was a kid, I always want to be a gangster.
Slams the trunk.
Zoom in.
Freeze frame, Tony Bennett. Rags to riches.
You might remember that from earlier.
Yeah, definitely.
Play it again.
Rags to riches.
Keep it and double it.
Yes.
If they did that again, I'm so sorry.
You get the introduction of Henry's youth.
Yes.
Of how he became
Why he became enamored with the gangster world, which is essentially what Scorsese is doing with the movie. He's trying to get you to fall in love the way Henry does.
Right.
So you understand why he falls into this world.
He got me. He got me real good. Like, I think it was only like 30 minutes in where I was just laughing and smiling, and I was like, dude, why the fuck am I having such a great time?
It's a hangout movie
It
for
is.
virtually the first hour.
I think the whole thing kind of is.
Yes, but I think once it gets into the darker elements, it becomes less fun.
To me, after the
and I don't like to use the word fun, but I think that is there on purpose.
after the Lorenz heist,
Latanza.
after the Latanza heist, I think is when it shifts to like trying to be like less like campy and more like
the killing of Billy Bats.
These are
Yeah.
the
Killing of
serious
Billy Bats, dude.
ramifications.
I think that's where it really
Well,
hits.
because that's when they fuck up.
And
And nothing will ever be the same
Not
after.
just that, but I think that even Pesci's performance in that scene really upsets me. Like he is so vehement.
Scary.
Yeah, I know, man. He's just like, let me shoot him.
No,
Let
when
me
he's
shoot him.
no, it's the I got blood on your floor. I'm sorry. I
He
can't
does
believe
that too, but he's literally like, just please let me shoot him. Like,
Yeah.
please, now.
'Cause he's
Like, I just want to
insane.
kill him. And Henry, for the first time, is like, whoa. But we're jumping ahead.
we're jumping way ahead.
Anyway.
We always jump ahead.
I know. I'm
That's what
so
we do.
sorry.
I feel so much pressure about this episode. I don't know why.
It's the behemoth that we've dealt
Yeah,
with thus far.
It's his most important movie, arguably, and I love it, and I just feel this pressure. I'm nervous. I'm sorry.
Good.
You
I
love
need to
it.
acknowledge
You
it.
love it more than anyone here.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
definitely
It's
for
fine.
sure. And I'm not trying to say that.
Pieces of
We're
garbage.
putting you on a pedestal.
Since we don't like the movie as much as Frank, we don't like the movie, according to Frank. So he's the only fan in the room right now.
These are my boobs.
I wish there was a fan in this room. I'm hot.
It is hot. I'm
Heat.
shirtless. That's why I
Heat.
said these are my boobs.
Hey, do you like heat? Did you hear that earlier? Because you should. Otherwise, what are you doing here?
You're way too deep. You're way too deep. If you don't like heat, you better get the fuck out.
Straight
I will
up.
find you.
Yeah.
We're closing the door and locking it right now.
Well, we might leave it open a little.
Okay, just a crack.
Just a crack. Don't like it closed all the way, you know. Anyway,
Nice. Sad.
so he's a youth. Henry Hill is a youth. And
Yes.
he is watching out of his apartment window or his house window
Mhm.
across the street to see what is it a cab stand that is running as a
Fuck. I'm not positive.
I'm pretty
think
sure it's
so.
a cab
That
stand
sounds right.
running as a front for the mob.
Mm-hmm.
Run by Paulie, I think the actor's name is Paul Sorvino, but it's Paulie Cicero.
It's
in the
not a.
movie.
It's not a restaurant.
No,
No, it's definitely the cab stand.
because he works at the cab stand.
Yeah. And
Oh,
it's
'cause he's
where
parking the car. When
Yeah,
you
yeah.
say cab, I think of like a cab,
and
not
it's
like cars.
it's the mob hangout where they all stay and do their business, and he starts to run down how the neighborhood works, and he lets you slowly into his shitty home life where he has like way too many siblings, and his dad beats the shit out of him, and his mom doesn't know what to do, and he's
The
like,
scene where he beats him when we get that freeze frame is pretty tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he said, if I just gotta take a couple beatings, who cares? I get to still hang out with the mob. So he's sitting across the street, idolizing them, like being enamored, and he's like, I need to be a part of this. I'm gonna go start working for them. And slowly he gets more and more involved, and he stops like going to school. They beat up the mailman for him, and he's like, cool, these are my people. Like, that's what's up. That's probably why people get sucked into this movie more than anything. Like, who doesn't want that in their own life? Not joining the mob, but finding,
like ride or dies.
Yeah.
Like people like camaraderie.
Yeah.
I think that the movie is definitely riding on that a lot, like making you realize how important the family aspect is, while also roping you in and making you feel like you're a part of that same one.
My hot take: this is Martin Scorsese's Howard Hawks movie,
Okay.
like his true Howard Hawks movie, and that it's really examining community and family and
Mhm.
operating within this system. Similar to how something like Only Angels Have Wings just brings you into a world, literally through a surrogate character who is just enamored by the world and in love with it, and then as soon as they start to see the darker elements of it, they question it. and just as Henry does in Goodfellas.
Mhm.
But also, there is even a Hawksian woman of sorts in this movie.
Yeah.
A little bit. I
in
don't think she
Karen.
lives up to Hawks quite. None do.
Yeah,
as
she's
much.
not. She's not.
She's
But
not
she's
nearly
strong.
yes, no,
But she's
no.
got like the temperament and like the headstrongness.
She's the
like,
I
a
think,
little
strongest
bit.
I
of
think
any
her strength is
Scorsese
what
lady.
gets her into Henry's life officially.
Mhm.
Now, this might be wrong, but in my head, I do remember Margot Robbie's character being like more than just like sex appeal. Like I remember after watching Wolf of Wall Street, like liking her as a character.
See, I don't remember her at all. When I think of that movie, I'm hard pressed to remember.
From what I
her
remember, I
at
feel
all.
like they started out similar through DiCaprio's point of view, where she is more of an object, like
Yeah.
she is to him. But the longer he's with her, the more we get to know and understand
Yes.
the character.
I buy that.
Pretty similar.
coexists within
Pretty
them.
similar to this, except they start right off like he has one date, it's boring, and then the next date she pops off and like you get to see her personality.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I'm specifically thinking about there's a scene like probably like more than halfway through with the Wolf of Wall Street where Leonardo DiCaprio is just sleeping in the bed and you hear Margot Robbie just like walk up to him with a glass of water, taps him awake, and just
Just like Leota sleeping and waking up to a
To the
gun in his face.
What a great moment.
So like she splashes him, and then they have like this screaming match, and like Margot Robbie does she looks crazy, and then like there's a pause where he thinks that he's like come on baby, like doing the same thing that Leota does, where he's like come on baby, like it's cool, like it's all good, like let's be cool, and then she calms down, and then she just takes another cup and splashes it in his face, and he loses it. He goes, God damn it, you bitch. And I don't know. I think that Margot Robbie has a little bit of autonomy. I think I'll have to, I'll ultimately rewatch it to see.
We're getting there.
We'll have a big conversation about Sharon Stone and Casino too, but we're
Oh, yeah.
we're closer to that.
I always forget about her.
Anyway, so part of the reason that Henry Hill's dad kicks the shit out of him all the time is because he's doing so poorly in school. Not just because of that, but also because he's spending too much of his time at the cab stand, which is then making him do so poorly in school.
Yes.
But something they didn't understand about the real Henry is that Henry suffered from dyslexia and I believe ADHD to a pretty intense degree, which made him have a really hard time in school.
Did they say that in the movie?
No.
It's not in the movie, it's just history, real life things that I've seen.
Okay.
But he said it himself. He's like, I had learning disabilities as a youth, and it made school incredibly hard for me. But I could work, and I could go work for these men that were treating me like I was a grown-up.
Right.
They were treating me like I
Set
was
in
one
the
of their own.
60s?
No, it starts in 1955.
Yeah.
It goes to 1980.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
I think
it's
that
20. No, that's not 25 years, is it?
Mhm.
It's 25 years.
Mhm.
Okay.
accessibility was definitely like little to nothing at the time for like
Definitely.
learning disabilities. So
Definitely.
that
Oh yeah,
that,
people
that
didn't give a
definitely-
shit about it at the time.
that adds up.
People didn't care about kids.
Yeah, straight up.
The
And
John
they
Mulaney joke.
what, you're doing poorly? I'm gonna hit you with my belt
Yeah.
instead.
So
But
then they show their appreciation by beating up the mailman, being like, "Don't
because
deliver
he
these
sends
anymore."
the report cards to the house, which is when we get that dope fucking line, which is one of my favorites. The one day, some kids from the neighborhood carried my mother's groceries all the way home. You know why? It was out of respect. I
Love
don't know if
it.
that's exactly where it comes in, but it's around.
It's
there.
no, I'm pretty sure that is it. It's when his head's in the oven, and they just fucking do the freeze frame like they've been doing the whole movie. And then you get scenes of Henry working, like parking all the cars for people, even though he can't see above the fucking steering wheel. And you get him explaining the hierarchy of the mob, which the only important thing is that Paulie is at the top. He's the boss.
Paulie
and then,
Cicero.
and then you also get the introduction of Jimmy the Gent Conway, which is our
Yes.
Bobby D, at his most subdued other than Irishman, but we'll get there eventually one day. One Irishman to another, which we all out loud were like, hey, when they call him the Irishman.
He's
in
the Irishman.
Goodfellas.
Well, there's something about Scorsese putting De Niro
Yeah.
in these Irishman gangster roles.
Yeah.
It's happened
They've
multiple
talked
times.
about that they think it's funny.
Wasn't he an Irishman in Mean Streets
Yes,
too?
he like likes to not make him Italian.
That's
they
so,
literally
and also
think
because
it's
he just
funny.
does not look at all like an Irishman.
No, he
looks
looks
straight
Italian.
It's hilarious.
He's like the most Italian actor.
I
But
feel like Scorsese has like successfully scrambled my brain to be like, no, that's an Italian. That's a
He has scrambled you.
A little bit.
That is an Irish man right there.
This is your brain. This is your brain on weed. The
Any
Chronic
questions?
Don't do it.
Cannon. I do
So-
want to point
Classics.
I do want to point out that the actor Christopher Sarone, who plays young Henry, very good
he's
in this
awesome.
movie. And not only that, but perfect casting as far as the look-alike
Yes.
with Leota.
Yeah.
Except Leota, when he does take over, like I always forget he's supposed to be like 20 when you first see him. And
It's
I'm like,
true. But
okay,
fucking
that's
Tommy's
stupid.
supposed to be his age.
I know.
And fucking Joe
Yeah.
Pesci's like 10 years older than
I
Ray Liotta.
I said that out loud. I was
Yeah.
like, is Tommy the guy that they introduced at the beginning when they're both kids?
It just shows that he's had this like fuck the age thing since day one. He's like, I don't care. I want my actors.
And I don't. Did you already kind of get into Jimmy's introduction?
We started to.
Okay.
That's when we derailed.
Well,
His
I think that this
introduction's
is where
very
Paul Thomas Anderson falls in love with Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas, in that sort of dichotomy of the mentor-mentee relationship and how that can devolve over time. Or
which is a
whatever.
beautiful thing to think of in the scope. And I wonder if Scorsese, like, at some point thought maybe Leota will be my new boy.
Maybe.
But then it becomes
I think it is DiCaprio, and you can see the similarities between the two of
You
them
can.
in this.
They definitely got actually have
I'm
a pretty
almost like
similar
I
vibe.
wish that DiCaprio played younger Leota.
Oh, that would have been
He was
nuts.
a kid, man.
He-
Imagine.
That would have been the craziest. thing.
Oh, that would have been so cool.
But then
That would've
I
been so
doubt
cool.
he
Let's
would've
deep
gotten
fake
later.
DiCaprio into Goodfellas.
Somebody get on it.
Please. Okay,
Quick.
so
So Jimmy's in. He's
but I wanted to point out too about Jimmy's introduction,
Mhm.
that the whole Paul Thomas Anderson comparison as well, that it's very romantic. His entrance into the movie
the whole thing is.
comes up out of black, and like the way that he sees him is just pure idolization.
The first 20, all of Henry's youth is the most romanticized the movie gets. I mean, it still rides that wave for sure for like
Yeah.
an hour of like the good times and like get enamored and have fun. Like take your shoes off, hang out, have some spaghetti.
Dude, it was like when both times we went to New York, the first moment I saw Spike Lee and the first moment I saw Michael Mann, it was like my heart sank into the floor. I was like, holy fuck, that's them.
Right.
You're here.
And I mean, is that not what De Niro function as?
No,
As
yeah,
like
or
the
he does.
baton passer to the younger generation of actor.
Yes.
So it's perfectly fitting that he's there. And then after that, you get him meeting Tommy, and then they start doing the cigarette things, which is how Henry gets arrested. And then you get the moment when Jimmy's puts money in his pocket, and Henry's like, "Wait, you're not mad at me?" He's like, "You handled your first pinch like a man, and you didn't rat on your friends, and that's the only thing you got to remember." And then he walks out, and everybody goes, "He popped his cherry," and they cheer and they hug him, and it freeze frames. My heart literally fills
It's like
with joy.
It's like the initiation into a club.
you
know?
boys can attest to this. When this moment was happening, like this entire moment, especially when he went out and you find out that no one's mad at him and that everyone's like proud of him, I said out loud, I was like, guys, I am having such a great time, and I feel like I shouldn't be.
And that
Like-
made me
like I-
happy
like
to
I
hear you
know-
say that.
Like I know that I'm supposed to be based off of like Ceci's like ideals or whatever, but just like knowing what the reality of the situation, I shouldn't be like, this is so fucking dope. But I was so happy and enamored
Yeah.
in the world that I was just like, yes.
This is, at least as of recent times, has become a somewhat controversial movie amongst. I mean, I feel like Scorsese movies get it left and right because Wolf of Wall Street,
Scorsese.
whatever. So Sessi does get hit with controversy fairly often. Like Wolf of Wall Street got hit with the same wave that Goodfellas does, where it's like you're just promoting this kind of like terrible people in your head, making it a quote unquote fun movie, and you don't punish them enough, and you're not damning your characters enough. And I think both movies function more from like a documentarian standpoint, where well,
Absolutely.
this one more than Wolf of Wall Street for sure. This is more like the Mean Streets, where it's like I'm just showing you how it is. And I think what Goodfellas obviously improves upon is that it makes it feel like how they would feel. So Henry and them are having a good time, so it makes sense that we have a good time. And I think there's like, personally, I don't think you necessarily have to damn your characters to understand that you aren't promoting. Like, I mean, I struggle with it sometimes too, but representation isn't endorsement all the time, especially when you look at where they end, whatever.
And if it's history,
And it's history, you're literally just going off what happened.
That's the only thing that I was gonna say was like that's a determining factor for me in terms of like,
Right.
because as all know,
and I don't know, man, they all bite it in the end.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, crime doesn't pay.
No.
Like it always pays until it does. It doesn't.
Right.
Oh,
It's
it's
always
until it
fun
does,
until it isn't.
But I will say that like in terms of like everyone by now knows my shithead protagonist
Yeah.
qualms, but it helps when I know that you're just telling me something that happened as opposed to like, this is your original story and I'm going to paint these people as the good and the bad guys. Like, this is just my own original. Like, that's what bothered me with Taxi Driver, where I was like, okay, like, this is just completely your own thoughts. This is completely original. So, like, the hatred that's being aimed, I'm having a harder time not associating that with you, because everything is just a reflection of the artist, even if it's a studio movie that's handed to them.
Yes.
So when it's something like Goodfellas, where it is just like historical fiction, it depends on like the liberties you take. Like with something like Django Unchained, where it's like historical fiction. So it's like you take some liberties, but then you also manage to fall into like certain stereotypes. So it's like if you're gonna break, I don't know, like the rules of whatever genre or whatever movie type that you're making, then I like it if you do it all.
But
and
I
if
think
that's the case, what?
Oh, I think the difference between the historical fiction but in like Django and Goodfellas is like Django is like taking a completely fictional narrative and inputting it into a very broad historical element, whereas Goodfellas is far more specifically true to its actual story,
Yes.
despite some liberties and license with changing names and things for legal purposes or whatever.
I mean, that doesn't
always
count.
fucking happens in these kinds of movies, and I'm
Right.
sure there's probably a character or two that are like multiple people wrapped up in
Right.
one concise beat.
I think
that's
that
just
stuff's
movie making
forgivable.
things.
You have to do that. How else are you going to make it 2 hours?
Right.
Otherwise, you need a TV series.
But it's like, I guess just to make up like an imaginary sort of like situation, something like with Inglorious Bastards, where you're taking historical fiction and you're like, I think that I've never seen it, but I can understand. I can understand like, I guess at least the importance of it and like the payoff that it does give to like a certain crowd of people, because you take something that is historically true and then you flip it on its head and you go all the way with it, where you're like, all right, I'm just gonna do what I want. Like, I'm gonna make the movie that I want. I'm gonna kill Hitler. Sorry if I spoiled anything. Hitler does die in real life too, for the record. So it's like,
He just didn't get shot by Eli Roth. That's all.
yeah. So I don't know. It's like, if you're gonna put us in a fake world with fake people, then I think you should be more careful about the characters that you're creating and how you like their trajectory. I don't know.
I mean, that's fair. We've talked about that many a time, you know.
Yeah, we really
like
have.
I definitely see your point with all of it, but I think with something like Goodfellas, everybody comes to a movie with their own morals and compass of everything, and like
And their
Scorsese,
own way that they're going to perceive it no matter what.
like we should understand as people that violence is bad, crime is bad, these are bad people. So if Scorsese's not sitting there going, these are the bad guys, like that's like that'd be almost talking down to your audience. I think, like, wasting time doing that for something that is so inherently should be known. Like, it's mobsters. Like, it's not ever hiding that this is the mob, and we should know that as people coming to a movie. So I don't think having fun is like a bad thing. I have fun watching this movie, and I like these characters, and not because I think they're good people, and I don't necessarily enjoy like
Well,
bad people.
they're interesting.
And I
They're
don't know, maybe
interesting.
it's
In the
just
world-
because I'm so invested in the behind the scenes element of pretty much all movies that I love, but like I see Bob De Niro and I see Joe Pesci and I see Martin Scorsese and I see Ray Liotta. I'm seeing these people taking a story that is obviously dark and obviously immoral to a large degree, and they're having creative fun with it, and they're taking it in a direction that only a movie could, really. I think this is a purely cinematic movie, too, which is not something we've really talked about. And I think that also plays into Thelma's contributions in the editing, as well as Michael Ballhaus' cinematography, of course, and then Scorsese's eye for the entire thing.
Yeah, my whole thing is like, just representation is important and it matters. Like, for a majority of time when black people are being casted in movies, they didn't just outright say like, oh, well, these are the thugs and the bad guys, or these are the servants. But you see enough of that, and it's just like, it's in your mind. It's not a secret that there is like a sort of like, just an idea about society, about just minorities in general, people of color, about having like about being like criminals and not being like, I don't know, just or whatever. And I think that is a product of representation in movies. So I think having that as just like a thing in my head at all times, just as a African American person who watches movies, seeing other forms of representation I just think about, how it resounds, because you're not supposed to love the characters in Goodfellas. You're supposed to be enamored in the story and just sort of following it as it is. But it's also just about the reflections in society. Like, how many people have seen this movie and seriously looked at it and thought about, like, oh, like, these are the serious ramifications of the mob? Or how many people fucking just tossed it on in their living room and sat down, occasionally looked up and were like, oh, this is a great movie. I'm having a good time.
Crime is literally like maybe the most popular subgenre of drama. Like, especially when it comes to TV. Like, I feel like all the major TV shows, with the few exceptions, are mostly crime shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
People are really invested in that long form.
It is what we enjoy. I don't remember what TV show, but it was like a TV show about kids, and they would always reference their parents watching murder porn. And then one day they showed it, and it was like them watching like Cold Case Files. And it's like, yeah, that's actually what you're just finding out about people who died and people who killed them.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that is like a majority of the TV that is on right now, and like the most consistent TV that has been on, over the years.
If movies is nothing but an empathy machine, then it's so that you can fit yourself in the shoes so you don't have to do it yourself or whatever. Like,
a movie is not real. If you want to quote Quentin Tarantino and go back to him, that's always his defense for all of his bullshit, is that this isn't real. This is a movie. If you fucking can't separate a movie from reality, that's on you. Which in some cases, yeah. In other cases, who's to really say? It's hard to know.
I mean, in all cases, yes, but it's how we let it affect us, how we choose to be reactionary toward it.
Yes.
Like, the same things I've said to defend Goodfellas could be said to defend Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I recognize that. I'm not, like, I'm sitting here in my brain like, well, you're just a dumb hypocrite. I'm like, sometimes it bothers me, sometimes it don't.
It works sometimes, and other times it doesn't. And it's inconsistent person to person, too.
Yes. There is no golden ticket or purified answer, but for some reason, this fun quality of Goodfellas doesn't irk me in the slightest. Like, I like to sit there and have a good time watching it.
I wonder
because I
if
also
that
have a
would
good
have
time watching them fall. Like, even when shit's going wrong, I'm like, yeah, no shit, you dummies.
This is what you get. It's always satisfying when you can, like, you see the moment before the character does. It's like, oh, this is where you fucked up.
I will say, you were calling out everything that was about to happen, usually a couple minutes before, sometimes immediately before.
The best one was the Joe Pesci. When he opens the door, I went, oh no, and he goes, oh no, he gets shot in the fucking head.
That seems wild. The look on his face right before it happens.
Just like, like, oh, I'm dead. I'm literally dead right now.
The look on his face is like, like he sees the empty
And it's
room.
crazy, if we're talking about similarities between Goodfellas and The Irishman, how much they fucking flip that same moment. Like, same moment, your friends, killing your friends, and flip it on its head, where it is so much more reserved. Like, Pacino walking in, actually taking a look, looking around the room, and then immediately turning around. As opposed to this time,
Pesci doesn't even get to turn around.
Pesci walks in the room and no, like, you don't. Like,
well, they're not even like friends with him, dude. Those guys fucking despise Pesci.
He killed Billy Bats.
He's been with the crew for a minute,
That's
so they
true.
even if they don't fucking like him, like, he's
But
part of the
you
family.
can't-
but
You can't
fucking
kill a
Billy,
made
but
man.
Billy Bats also wasn't part of their family, was he?
No, he was a I mean, I'm gonna assume if he's a made man, he's a part of the family, or at least associated.
There was a clash between two families, and I think that's part of the problem here.
I guess killing Tommy would resolve that. Actually, I think that is a thing that happens, but I don't want to say officially.
I'm not even 100% sure.
But yeah, I think that the way he does it in The Irishman is that you are literally Jimmy, where it's like you enter that room with him and you're looking around and you're thinking the exact same things, and then it happens.
Because, I mean, I think The Irishman's a much more emotional film beginning to end, and it cares about its characters and getting into their lives and their emotional connections with each other, where I think this does almost stay objective, which is why I think the fun is an element of it, because that's the life they were living. They had this bombastic time not caring, because once Henry, it transitions to him being an adult after that freeze frame, it's him and Tommy, and they're pulling off little crimes and whatever, and then they're all
De
just
Niro's
hanging out.
he just fucking hijacks trucks. Like, that's like all they do.
Yeah, they're
They
just
jack
hijacking trucks and doing small little pedals and rakes, and then and fences. Stakes, rakes, and fences. It's fine. What is up with mobsters? They're funny words.
I have no idea.
But they just spend most of their time hanging out at the Copacabana being assholes. Like, that is what they do. They're like, we do little crimes, then we just dick off all our money here, and we're loud and annoying, and we, like, own these clubs without owning them. because we protect them.
It's
Quote-unquote.
all about protection. It's like you're buying protection from us. If you don't pay us, we'll beat your ass.
Right. It's insane. The mob is one of the organized crime is insane in how it developed in this country coming over from mostly Italy and how much it is associated with the Italians and immigrants who are just like, fuck this.
We need to stick together.
People won't give us jobs? Fine. This is all we know. Let's punch some people. Because, in Italy, crime was crazy. You had fascism and mobs running everything. It was one or the other. You were getting fucked by someone. Man, Italy was a wild time. Can't wait to watch Godfather.
Shout out Mussolini.
Hey, you made the trains run on time. Have I told that on this cast? I don't think I have. I've said it 1,000 times. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
Please.
Throw my grandma under the bus.
Oh, it's fine. No one knows who your grandma is.
Okay, well, one time more than once. She's been like, if you bring up Mussolini, she's like, yeah, he's great. He made the trains run on time. Like, yeah, what about everything else? Like, I don't know about that. We just cared about the trains. That's it. That's like living in any fascist government. I don't think you're allowed to say anything.
There was this one thing that we did that he liked, and I'm going to stick with that for a while.
To go back real quick, it was the Lucchese and Gambino families.
Okay.
Billy Batts is a part of the Gambino family, and I'm pretty sure that Tommy is a part of the Lucchese family.
That makes sense.
So, like, I'm pretty sure that
squash the
Tommy
beef.
was killed in order to, like, make things more amicable.
Amicable.
Thank you.
No problem.
So they're just being dicks at the Copacabana, living every night like it's nothing. They're now integrated and whatever, being way too old to be playing their ages. And then I feel like the next big thing that happens is Karen.
Well, I thought you were about to say the funny how.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
It's iconic.
Yeah. Everybody's talked about it. Everybody knows. They do the funny like a clown. God damn it.
Yeah.
You know.
Here's the thing, though.
That's a real thing that happened to Pesci.
As something that I've seen this clip before. It's just like one of the famous clips of Goodfellas.
It's been spoofed 1,000
it's
times.
maybe the most famous moment in the movie other than the first line.
So
True.
I didn't think that like it was gonna get anything out of me because when I first watched the clip, I was like, "Yo, this is anxiety inducing. I'm afraid." And like knowing that it ends okay, I would think that upon this time watching it, I would be like, "Cool." But when this moment happened, I was like, "Is he gonna fucking like smack him or something?" Like this is really because everyone shuts up and it's just like it's really intense for a moment. It's a very good moment.
Because that shows you what this lifestyle is. At any moment, it could snap and break.
Because you do eventually see Tommy like when you think he's joking. Like I think that's what it is. It sets it up to be like, oh, Tommy's a scary guy, but usually he's just a jokester, and then you see him only act on those things from this point out.
Right,
the scary things.
It's that thing that's lingering in the back of your mind at all times. Like, yeah, I'm laughing up, having a good old time, but I'm sitting at a table with just killers. Oh, and before that scene's when he runs down all the people in the club. Jimmy 2 times. Get the papers.
That's one of the most impressive moments in the movie. The way he's able to choreograph that perfectly in sync with Leota's narration.
Yep, and everybody
Unreal.
looks at the camera and says their like catchphrase.
That
like,
is
"Hey,
easily
how you
one of
doing?"
my favorite moments in Scorsese's entire canon.
It is that like fourth wall breaking, like
It's the POV shot.
Yeah.
It's Henry walking through the club. It's literally taking the POV of Henry.
and making us sit inside it with him. Because then the next big thing is Karen, who I think also simultaneously
Comes
acts,
as like fucking the funniest back and forth between Joe Pesci and Ray Liotta, where he's like, "Hey, look, man, I'm going on this date later." And like, he's like, I knew he was gonna ask me to do something for him.
yeah,
I'm not gonna do it, Tommy.
it wants him to go on a double date, because the broad won't go alone with Italians. She's prejudiced against Italians.
She's prejudiced against Italians. That's
As great, I think. As
All of Pesci's deliveries are fucking so
he
good.
fucking won an Oscar. God damn it.
I was about to. Have you seen his speech? I've been waiting for this. Hold on, everybody. Jesse, you can play the clip.
Okay.
Let's pause. Everybody needs to fucking see his Oscar acceptance speech.
And the Oscar goes to Joe Pesci in Goodfellas.
Oh, it's my privilege. Thank you.
That's it. 4 words.
It was
So
my
funny.
privilege. Thank you.
5 words.
David Lynch had a very similar
6 words?
acceptance
It
speech
was
for his
my
honorary
privilege.
Oscar.
Thank you. Yes. It's the most Pesci thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like,
I'm shocked
I don't
he
give a
even
shit
showed
about
up.
this. Yeah. Like, who cares?
He didn't
Thank
show
you.
up for The Irishman, but was he nominated? He was,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
He wasn't there.
both
Both
of them
Pacino
were.
and him didn't
And
show
not
up.
De Niro. It's
Yeah.
bullshit.
Unreal.
Stupid. Anyway, so Pesci, I think, is the one element. This is a movie I always scream about. Like, it's so easy to take for granted because of how much it's ingrained in the culture. Like, it's so easy, whatever. I think my failings is I take Pesci for granted. I'm like, yeah, he's fine. Like, I don't get why he's the thing everybody loves, but just talking about the funny like a clown and the yes, Pesci's got talents. Like, he's pretty fucking amazing in this movie.
Yeah. And I've always been curious, like, in trying to think about it, why Karen co-narrates the movie as soon as she comes into it.
Because she is our
official surrogate, because we get Henry as our surrogate for the entire movie up to this point. But up to this point, everything that has happened has not been too morally damning. Whereas as soon as Karen enters the picture, everything starts going down Henry's hill.
Except for the opening.
I think the idea is that it's Henry's acquainting you with the world, and then Karen's like acknowledging like what an outsider would feel, which is what all of us are to this world. Because he has the blinders on. He's like, this is all I've ever wanted to do. Look at these guys. Oh my God, I fucking love this. And Karen's somebody who is a quote unquote normal girl, like living a normal life, like whatever, and
reaping some benefits off of that lifestyle instead of actively participating, only complicit in just being there.
Yeah, because she gets wrapped up in it too. It was like, after a while, I didn't think it was
weird when she takes the gun, but we'll get there.
It's kind of exciting. What she says.
She said it turned around.
We already talked about it. They go on the shitty date, and then they're gonna go on a second. He blows her off, and then she shows up to scream at him, and he's
the funniest scene too.
It's awesome.
Leota's reaction is great.
You can tell he's like, ooh, I like this.
He's like, oh, it's sorry.
Spicy.
Yeah, he's like,
salsa.
I didn't think. He's like, you look bored the whole time, even though he was being a dick. Like, I gotta go. I gotta get out of here. I got a job to do.
He didn't want to be there, so he was definitely the one that was like, fuck this. But it was still cool.
And then we get Karen's whole section, which is one of my favorite parts of the movie, actually, is her whole narrating section. Because you get her, them going on dates, them getting closer. You get a real relationship. You get the legendary Copacabana shot.
Well, it's like the documentary switching subjects to further cover the world, because the lives of the wives of these mobsters was definitely an integral part of all of this.
Family.
The lives of the wives.
Family inside your family inside your family.
Yes.
So you get the Copacabana shot, which, again, this is something I've also always taken for granted. But I think for the first time watching in his canon, like, progress, like, this is such a monumental, like, whoa, how did you do that? Like, at this point, like, obviously there have been way more impressive tracking shots since, even in Scorsese's career.
That's what I was about to say.
Like, at the time, though, this is the first one where it's like.
And weirdly, and I will say this,
damn.
I do not credit Boogie Nights as being better than Goodfellas. I think the tracking shot in Boogie Nights is better than the tracking shot in Goodfellas. The opening.
Oh, yeah. It's way more flashy,
It's just,
though.
It's just intricate as fuck. And I guess if you're going to already at the gate tell me that this is what it is, and Goodfellas does in a way too.
Yeah.
But I remember when I rewatched that shot again last month, I know I referenced this in the last podcast, something about it felt
The last
unearned.
what?
The last podcast. I referenced this. It just felt kind of immature in the way that it didn't necessarily felt like it belonged. But then when I watch the movie again now, and like also considering the fact that this is sort of just Mean Streets leveled up, and Mean Streets is his first attempt at just sort of luxuriating in the world of the gangster, but this one's even more direct and even more well realized, and I think this shot is proof of that. And that he's just trying to get you to soak up the environment and thrive in it the way, even because this is new to Karen too. So we're seeing it from her perspective with Henry as well.
Because she's amazed. She's like, "Whoa! How did we just get to go in the back?"
When it follows the guy with the table,
yes.
Oh my God,
that's when it's like,
imagine going to a place and they're like, "Right this way, sir," and someone picks up a whole ass table and walks you to.
And
your
you
spot.
hear, I love that you hear a guy in the line go, "Hey, we've been waiting. Like you said, there wasn't a table. They made room for him." You're on that date, you'd be like, who the fuck is this guy? And she even asked him, what do you do? He's like, I work in construction. What is that about? Heat? I work in metals. I work in construction. Just like, I don't want to tell you what I do, so I work with my hands, but I somehow have a lot of money.
I do my own carpentry.
What is the thing that is the least interesting that you wouldn't ask about? What can I say right now? I work in metals, not as a welder, but as a salesman.
I'd just say as a telemarketer.
God. Yeah, I'm a telemarketer who gets his own table at this popular nightclub.
I'm a door-to-door mission, and everyone here loves Jesus.
I'm a Jehovah's Witness.
They show that whole table of old men like buying him a drink and cheersing him, and she's as enraptured as we should be.
They're like, yeah, I don't think there's a way you wouldn't be enamored, especially because he's not being weird. Like he's a very charming dude.
He's got a nice smile. Henry does. And then
She says that, doesn't she?
Mhm.
Okay.
and then next big
Oh, and when he takes her on the date and he's got the cross.
yeah, he's
On
like,
the
"Don't let
that shot where he's like smiling up at her and then it pans down to the cross. Almost, I wish it would have done like a snap zoom, just like her shock, like, oh God, button that up, and she's like, so Henry, I hear you're half Jewish, and he's like,
Oh,
just a
only
good
half.
half.
just a good half.
He does the
Fucking dusts
rubbing
himself
on his
off.
It's so funny. So then the next big thing is the neighbor dude tries to make a move on Karen.
Oh,
and
my
he like
God.
beats her up a bit because she wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
She calls Henry crying, and he's like, "Oh fuck this," and
Yeah.
immediately goes over there. And one of the like most intense scenes
He
in the
looks
movie.
crazy.
Incredibly, it was really satisfying for some reason, bro.
I think because I mean he beat up a woman beater. That's nice.
I just read earlier before the podcast that Leota used the recent death of his mother as like influence on his emotional state.
That makes sense.
I'm sure it wasn't by choice.
It just comes out. Like I'm so pissed right now.
Stop!
And he I think that's actually the only moment in the movie that Leota's like scary and like intimidating.
Yes.
Like he definitely gets like deranged later in the movie and stuff, but that's the only time
He's
where
drugged
I'm like,
out in the end
No,
of
the
the
Karen,
movie.
Right.
the Karen one is also scary to me.
that maybe because I've seen it so many times and I know he's not gonna like hurt her. I'm like, he loves her. Like
See,
as fucked up as
I-
this is, like
Not having the context of the whole film and like seeing that he was becoming derailed, like that, because at that point, he's fucking up and stuff. At least with Karen, like she's noticing that he's slipping up with
Yeah.
her.
Well, this lifestyle doesn't pay.
yeah, yeah. So
I don't think it's good for relationships necessarily.
Oh,
Yeah,
you mean
no.
having 3 girlfriends?
Yeah, that's like normalized. And Fridays
Do you
for the
think that
wives.
Karen
No,
has to be
Fridays
a
for the
sociopath?
girlfriends, Saturdays for the wives, or other way around, whatever he says. What'd you ask about Karen?
Do you think she has to be a sociopath a little bit to like just let all this shit happen?
No, she has to be a woman in the 50s.
Yeah,
What
that's
else you gonna
definitely
do?
fair.
Give me my life. This is what I'm supposed to do, but this is better because I have more money. Thank you. I can't have a job.
Wait, I want love? Come back.
Yeah. Hey, wait, get your ass back here. So he beats the shit out of that guy, and then that's when she's 100% like, I'm in this. Like we said, he gives her the gun to hide, and she's like, it kind of turned me on. I don't know. I was in. Most girls would have ran, but I don't know. I don't think it makes her a sociopath, but I think it is a certain kind of person to get
No,
wrapped up.
I hate that using that word, but I think it's just a blanket to kind of cover the you have to have a sort of mentality to be able to go along with it for so long. I mean, that plays into where Skylar White and all that shit goes by. I think in like that kind of show, like it's definitely way more on the line of abusive for Walter White's case.
I mean, Henry's not a model boyfriend, husband.
Absolutely
person.
not. But I do think that he rivals Walter White in being a better person.
And then we get one of my other favorite scenes in the movie is the wedding. Like I love like the Life is But a Dream's playing while they're slow dancing and it's moving around and she's like, it was so overwhelming and they gave me all this money. I met so many Paulies and
so many Polly.
okay, I swear to God though that is real. Every time in my family there are so many goddamn Joeys and Mikes, and there was
Paulies?
no, not Paulies. It's Joey's and Mike
Well, I
and
was-
Tony. Those are the 3 names in my family. That there are at least 6 with the same first and last name, and it's just like which one. We have I don't want to say last name, but there's Joey, there's his son Joe. No, it's Joe, his son Joey, and then the other son, the big little Joey, because he's younger but he's large.
So,
I'm not joking.
you guys
We
call
call
him
him
Big-
Big Little Joey.
Big Little Joey, come here.
That's real.
BLJ.
I love it. It's hilarious. I'm just like, what? And he plays the accordion at like all the events. Dude, it gets funny. It's just like, is this real? It's like, oh yeah, it is.
That's great.
I said that too. It's like, do I have a bias towards this movie? Because I'm like, I get this. I've heard their stories. They've told me now that I'm older, like how many times they've almost gotten involved with the mob, and at the last minute we're like, no, we shouldn't. Like, and you guys, like, let's take a pause. Like, this will be wrong.
So does that mean it's like a rite of passage? Like every Italian event, like walks down the path of a monster, and then they take a pause and go, you know what? Regular life. I'll just make some pizza. Or
I
something.
think some of mine were like, nah, we don't need them. We can make the money ourselves.
So is there a version of your life where you would be like next in line to be the Don?
No. I wish. Just kidding. I don't wish.
Is your father not the eldest son?
No. actually.
No?
He's the youngest of all his siblings.
Oh yeah, you're low in line for the Don, unless your dad did some fuck shit. And,
Well, he's
betrayed
the
his
only
brothers.
one with a son. Well, now there's a married. Whatever. Why are we talking about this? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Goodfellas.
Frank's family is the mob.
So we have a fun wedding scene that I love a lot, and I think it almost does encapsulate this thing that we keep repeatedly talking about, where it's she's fully committed to this world, and we're also wrapped up in it at this point. And after that, though, what happens?
At that point, it's probably Billy Bats.
I mean, that's the next big thing. I guess we go over Karen's life where she's like, I hang out with all the wives now, and they're all fucking nuts, but I guess I'm a part of this. Like, and does that, when it taps into his, like, girlfriend and stuff, where it starts showing Henry having all these other people in his life?
Does he get into it that fast? I feel like you're right, only because I remember being like, he's cheating already? What the fuck?
You know, I thought I didn't need to take notes, but I probably should have. Actually, I feel like after Karen, the thing is Billy Bats. Before it's like the harassing the mistress and stuff.
Yeah.
So we do get the Billy Bats scene.
Well, there's a little bit of a proceeding leading up to the Billy Bats scene where Henry buys this nightclub that he's going to run, or buys a restaurant. I don't know what he refers to it as. But I think it's funny how in real life Henry has claimed that he was trying to get out of the mob virtually from the moment that he got in, because he realized how fucked it was in real life. So he never was really as into it as Scorsese makes it out to be.
Or do you just say that to protect your ass?
But he said no, because he went into the army, I think, or something like that. And then when he came back, he got back into petty, like that was his out, was he went to the army. And then he came back and he got into petty crime again. And all of a sudden he was like, it just followed him like a curse. He was like, it just never left. Whenever I would try to do something, it would always come back. And he said that he opened up that restaurant that the Billy Bats crime ends up happening at to go straight, to stop doing the crime shit. And they all followed him there. The Gambino family and the Lucchese family, most specifically, made that like their hub.
That's insane.
Yep.
Well, it's like if you don't say, hey, I'm out, why would they?
But
Because you can't say, hey, I'm out.
Yeah, you can't be out. You know too much.
Sorry, mister, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Yeah,
now you're a gangster.
You're in. Which is why probably Scorsese just remove that element from the movie, you know, like that's not going to be a productive thing because he doesn't even get out, and you might as well just ride the wave of like you're in this lifestyle, especially when you open it as bombastically as you do.
Random piece of trivia. But
okay,
Scorsese tied Leota's tie every day because he needed the knot to be perfectly authentic to the world.
How'd you guys learn how to tie a tie?
I didn't.
My dad, I think I do it wrong. I'm pretty sure I do.
The way
I'm
that
almost
I tie a
100%
tie is
positive.
definitely 1,001% wrong, and I will tie it once, and then I will leave it tied and take it off and put it back.
You got a tie in here?
It's
I taught
embarrassing.
my dad
No,
how
I don't
to tie
think
a
so,
tie.
actually.
I have a bunch of ties in my room. I can do a double Windsor knot. That's it.
I didn't teach you how to tie that? Wasn't you?
No, you didn't teach me how to tie a tie.
There was some boy. I just remember being
I
like,
was-
God damn it, come here.
I was in the
My
eighth,
dad would get annoyed.
I was in the 8th grade, and it was like for it was like for a concert, and I had a red tie, and all the boys' dads were tying their ties, and I was just like, I was just chilling. I was like, I mean, I guess I don't need to wear, like, it actually looks kind of fly with my collar like this. And then like one dude's dad like looked at me and he goes, do you not know how to tie a tie? Come here, I'll show you. And then like ever since then, I was like, all right, cool. And then before homecoming, I forgot how to tie it and was outside like, Dad, like any assistance. He goes, I've never worn a tie in my life, man.
That's
Like
impressive.
all his ties were like clip-ons. So ended up YouTubing it. And then I taught a lot of the Kappa boys how to do it.
Nice. Okay.
So.
I definitely taught somebody. I thought it was you. Did you have shave?
Not I.
I thought it
I think
was
I taught you how to shave.
Tell me how to do some things.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
You taught him how to shave?
I'm pretty sure. Like you were doing it, and I was like, "You're doing it wrong."
Now that I do believe.
I
'cause
think it was
did-
in New York
Really?
with your family trip.
Oh, okay.
I'm
I
pretty
being
sure I
Jesse.
remember you being like, "What are you doing?" Like, no, wrong, bad. Like,
Yeah.
For some
dude,
reason, I feel like I
you're-
remember that. Was that on the way
you
there
were
in
telling me
Pennsylvania?
about against the.
maybe.
I think you're the one who told me about against the grain versus with the grain, and about like why I get like my little like the little bumpies,
Yeah.
like with the ingrown hair,
With the bumpy.
because I was basically like I was just slapping a razor against my face because there was nothing there. In the
no,
first
you were
place.
going up. I'm like, bruh, down. What are you talking about? This is
right.
nutty.
We figured it out.
You do Up after. And Scorsese went through all this with Ray Liotta.
Yeah,
Fact.
and he also made a movie called The Big Shave once, and he also made a movie called Goodfellas once, and in that movie, Billy Batts gets killed. So at that point,
Because
he has this restaurant.
He pisses off Pesci. He makes fun of him. He razzes him.
Hey, why don't you go get your fucking shine box?
And for some reason, Pesci is just the most unhinged person. It's because he's short.
It is because he's
The
short.
Napoleon complex, you think?
Yeah.
Did you know?
think
But you know, the real Tommy was a big buff dude. Apparently, the real
Hilarious.
Henry Hill said that Pesci's performance was 90 to 99% accurate, despite not being as physically
imposing.
imposing as
That's
the
scary.
real Tommy.
Imagine a more physically imposing person being like, "I'm gonna kill you."
I think if anything, like Pesci being a tinier guy plays into that idea in the movie sense a lot.
Definitely.
more. It helps add that element for sure. Gives him a better reason to be as off the chain as he is.
Oh, we forgot about the hair guy. That's a funny scene because that's when Henry gets the call to go to Karen. Is when they're Jimmy the fuck you in the ear, fuck him in the ear, fuck him in the other ear. I don't give a damn.
Oh yeah.
Just I can't think of his name. God damn it, with the hair, the wigs, Maurice. We just skipped over that part, and I just wanted to bring it up because it's fucking funny.
No, it's important. It's definitely important.
So Billy Batts, he insults him because he used to shine his shoes, and he just got out of prison.
And Tommy just walks out. He didn't even fucking say it. He's just like, okay. And he just
But
fucking leaves.
that guy's in a lot of shit.
Well,
Dude.
after they have their little exchange.
Oh, you mean the guy who plays Billy Batts?
Yeah.
Isn't the guy who plays the guy who
Frank
plays Billy
Vincent.
Batts comes in the casino too, and I'm not going to spoil it because it happens, but we'll talk about this again.
I don't remember. He's
Casino.
in Do the Right Thing. He's the guy who's like,
That's right.
my car.
Yeah, that's
Don't
right.
get water in my car. Fuck you. And he's in Raging Bull. I think he's one of the mobsters.
Okay, I thought he was in a few Sassies. Like he was
So-
one of the ones that was like consistent in his continued crew of mob like gangs.
I think he was like a normal dude who just one day was like, yeah, I'm in movies now.
Funny,
He looks like a gangster.
kind of like Michael Mann's guy.
Yeah.
What's his
yeah,
name?
yeah.
God, Dennis Farina.
Yes.
Dennis Farina.
Dennis
It's not
Farina.
no, but it sounds like it could have been. It's a vowel.
Dennis Farina. What a
Yeah.
good.
What a good.
Anyway, so Billy Batts pisses him off. They kill him
Who?
very violently.
Wait, Billy Batts?
Huh.
I'm Jesse.
I'm Frank.
Brandon.
Billy.
Why don't you go home and get your fucking shine box? So Tommy goes home, and instead of getting a fucking shine box, he gets a lot of anger.
Well,
he
he
tells him
tries
before he
to
leaves.
kill him.
Before he leaves, he says, "Keep him here. Keep him here. Fucking
Mhm.
keep him here,
Mhm.
Henry." And then he leaves, and then it shows later that Jimmy's like drinking and talking with them, and then he comes in like a furious storm, and he just goes to town, starts beating the shit out of him.
It is brutal.
Yep.
One of the most brutal beatings in all of
And
Sassy's
Jimmy
movies.
and Jimmy hops in, starts kicking him in the face too.
De Niro's performance in that scene is just as scary. The look on his face as he's kicking the shit out of him.
And Henry's just standing there watching.
yeah.
And then they're gonna shoot him, or they do kind of, but somebody hits it like out of his hand for some reason. I don't remember why.
The
but
gun?
yeah. And then he's still like, "Sorry, I got blood on your floor, Henry." And then we get probably the actual best scene in the movie.
Well, we're caught up to where we open and we know what
It's
comes
before
next.
they bury him.
Oh, that's right.
The pit stop, baby.
Yeah, I always think it's after, even after just watching
Yep.
it a couple weeks
It's
ago.
nope. Before they go, they got to get something from his ma's house,
It's
from
so
Tommy's
good.
ma's house, played by Marty's mommy.
What's her
She's
name?
back. Mama
Is
Sassy.
it Catherine Scorsese?
Yes,
Okay.
Catherine Scorsese. Very good.
Thank Christ.
She is the cutest person on the planet,
Yes.
and that scene feels
The most earnest, real scene, like maybe in any of his
After like a
movies.
bloody, violent murder, we get this calm moment where they're all hanging out. She wakes up. She's like, "I'm so excited to see all you. Sit down. I'm gonna make you spaghetti."
Well, this is like this is what they would do in real life.
Yeah,
All of them would just sit around with Scorsese's mom, and she would cook them spaghetti.
and
With
they
a dead
Another
body
Italian
in the trunk.
dishes.
well, maybe with the dead
Yes,
body.
maybe with the
We
devil.
can't confirm that in the real life.
Yes,
but
probably not. According to history, Scorsese has never had a real body in his trunk.
maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe Catherine Scorsese. I always find it so funny that I've heard in the past that while they were filming the scene, they struggled to get through the takes because Catherine Scorsese would constantly refer to Jimmy and Tommy as Bobby and Joey.
It's so fucking cute.
She couldn't stop
You know, it's
It's
because
just
it was
the
just
same
so
thing.
casual.
It's the same thing in King of Comedy. All the parts where she's
Yeah.
yelling in the basement. There are so many times where she goes, "Bobby, oh, sorry."
Mom,
love
please stop calling me.
they. It is funny too that it works in the scene that like Henry is acting as like the chill outsider, like because he's shooken up by what's literally going on.
Yes.
So he's not saying much, and he's the outsider of the crew, so he's not involved in the scene with Ma. It's the other two that are just fucking talking.
Pesci picks up the butcher knife at the table.
Yeah, it's like I gotta take this.
He's fucking like, can I take this knife? I gotta take this knife with me. And I'm just like, this is so fucking
We hit
funny.
a deer, the hooves. It's
Yeah,
a whole
that's right. He
mess.
has a whole story lined up, and then De Niro's little character bit, which I guess the real Jimmy Burke, which is the real name of Jimmy Conway in real life, would roll his ketchup between his hands to like put it on his plate, like he was like starting a fire with a couple sticks or something.
And he does that in the scene.
And De Niro does that
I just like something
very intently. He's like,
and then they take that whole like side moment to her to show off her painting. He's like, I like this one. The one dog's looking that way and the other one's looking the other. It's very just such a tender moment that like shows like how Scorsese is equating this to like his own life. You know, like this is me.
it's how it's personal to him.
It's like I always get this feeling that like the best movies feel like they're connecting, like we're pulling off a crime or a heist. Like we convinced the studio to let me and my friends make a movie where we play around in the backyard pretending we're gangsters. Like how fun. And my mom's in it. Fuck it. Like this is the most like him acknowledging like I'm a kid in a fucking candy store and you're letting me be. Because it's the most out of place scene in the whole movie. Like there's no narrative purpose. There's no emotional purpose. It's barely from the documentarian standpoint. Like, who knows if they actually stopped at his mom's house? I think Scorsese's like, I want a scene with my goddamn mom in this movie. Like, really give her a moment.
He forces
to
it into
shine.
like every movie.
But this is the one where she's the most prevalent and
Absolutely.
most involved.
yes,
And maybe it's unintentional, but I think that
she's pretty involved in Casino actually.
Well,
get
up to
there.
this goddamn point, Jesse.
Okay.
and I don't think it was exactly intentional, but having this scene with Ceci's mom and these dudes who just killed a guy eating spaghetti, I think that it does a good job at what probably is a big reason as to why, you know, we like crime movies and criminality so much, is that it helps humanize
Yes.
Tommy.
Yes.
Specifically Tommy. It's like, oh, here's this crazy guy who fucking kills people, but like he loves his mom.
And she
fucking-
loves him.
Like, and she loves him. So like, is he the worst person on the planet?
Maybe.
Maybe. But somebody loves him. So he's a person. And now whether you want to or not, you're viewing him like that.
And it might be
You
the
know?
only scene that truly shows the two families colliding in the movie. Like my blood family and then my created family.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, what I was talking about a while ago at this point. But, like, that's what everybody strives for, that you can have two families. Like,
Yeah.
I think.
Scorsese seemed to integrate them from the jump.
Yeah, definitely.
They've never not been a part of this. She's in the window on Main Street.
I know. It's crazy.
And
It's-
she makes the dinner, and who's that knocking at my door?
I
His
know.
career opens with his mom making food.
It's literally beautiful to get to this
amazing.
moment. Like, look, I made it, Ma, and now you're fucking look. Let's sit down and have some spaghetti in your house.
It's crazy also how she literally has never looked different. She has never aged in any of these movies.
God, I want to cry thinking about it.
I know.
Imagine if that was goddamn you.
What a beautiful soul.
You've put your mom in a lot of movies.
I have put my mom in a lot of
Oh
movies.
my God, you have to keep doing it.
I
Jesse.
know.
It's
Scorsese.
It's Scorsese.
She hates it. She hates it.
No, she doesn't.
She does. She does.
Patricia, if you're listening, I know you.
I know
fucking
you
love
like
it.
being in Jesse's
Okay,
movies.
well, listen. She definitely doesn't like her performances in the movies, but she likes to
Well-
boast how she pretends that she loves them. She always says how great she is in the movies, but
She
she's
is
being very
great.
sarcastic. I
Well,
think she's great.
She's often great.
Yes.
Maybe not they're all home runs, but they all can't be.
Who can do home runs all
Other
the
than
time except
Philip
for
Seymour
Seymour
Hoffman.
Except
Hoffman?
for Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah, he's the one,
apparently.
bitch.
Hey, we also said with somebody else.
What? You want to fight?
I
I hope
doubt
did that
his
pick up?
very first movie is good. I doubt it. His very first movie. There's no way he knocks it out of the park.
He probably has a bit part, so it's probably easier to knock it out of the park. You fucking moron.
Fuck you, pay me.
His first credit is My New Gun in 1992. His name was Chris in the movie, and he is very low on the bill.
We'll look at some clips after the pod.
Yeah, we will, won't we?
And then on the next episode, you'll see that I was correct.
I'm trying to be the Tommy here.
Please don't shoot me.
Funny how?
Bad how?
Like, what do you mean bad how? I thought
What
we
do you
just-
mean that Philip Seymour Hoffman's bad?
Well, I didn't say he was bad. I just said he wasn't good
In every role?
I'm just saying, like, you can't be good in everything you.
How can you
Frank,
besmirch
I
the
can't.
dead
I
like
literally
that?
can't think of anything else to say. My
How can you
mind went
besmirch
blank.
the dead like that?
Frank, come on. I thought we were just chilling. No, dude. Pod's over. This is real.
So
It's good, fella.
we're caught up. They're killing Billy Bats in the trunk of the car.
Hell
it's
yeah.
the beginning of the movie once again, and
Hell yeah.
now we
They bury him.
go ahead and bury him. And no, it's when they dig him up that we get that cool ass shot.
Yeah,
but fucking we'll
that
talk
shot
about that again. It's so
rules.
good. And we also haven't even brought it up yet. I'm shocked that we haven't really, other than the opening one. The needle drops in this movie.
Wall
he
to wall.
unloads them like a full clip of a gun.
Yep.
Like console
Which we
reload. Like it's ridiculous.
Which we realize is the first one since Mean Streets.
Yes.
Almost all of them don't really have that many needle drops.
This movie is almost guided by the music.
It
and I
is.
think that it's interesting how Thelma manages to do something that most editors are told never to fucking do.
Edit to the music.
Well, it's not even edited to the music all the time, but there's a rhythm to the editing that flows in congruence with the music at constant rate.
This is why I think this is the element that has impacted me the most as like a film lover and potential maker. Like where Goodfellas has left the stamp, the way it utilizes music as a storytelling device.
Yes.
It's not like the way that most needle drops happen in most movies, where it's just like, here's a cool song that might fit this moment. All the music is congruent from what came before and after.
and it's all accurate to the time.
And it's all accurate to the time, and it's all utilized to help tell the story.
Yeah.
It's not like a divergence or its own set piece or its own scene. It's like always propensing to itself and being its own like unit of storytelling amongst everything else.
Well, I always forget about it because I feel like the movie sort of just glosses over the years that pass because
Oh,
it just
yeah.
fucking flies.
Yeah.
But like the shift in culture that goes between each sequence of the movie is actually pretty significant. And you can see like in the cars they're driving, the clothes they're wearing, like the movie whenever I think of Goodfellas, I think of the early parts of the movie, the 50s.
Because that's
like
the fun stuff.
Right, exactly. I think of the red, fucking clubs and the candles on the tables and the suits and the ties tied just so, fucking just like Scorsese likes. I don't ever think about the fact that Harry Nielsen comes on later in the movie and fucking takes over when Henry's fucking coked out and looking up at the helicopters through his car window and shit. It's like the fact that this movie runs the gamut of history for years and I barely notice it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like it's 25 years.
Yeah,
and I don't know if that's
crazy.
necessarily a problem or a good thing.
I think it's
But
a
it
good
definitely
thing.
makes the movie fly faster.
It's just because it's not taking time to highlight anything.
It's just about what's going on.
Everything is as important as what preceded and what follows.
Right.
That's why it doesn't follow the trajectory of a like regular narrative film, which is so strange to me. How like we've talked about it many a time. I feel like all Scorsese movies are kind of strange in that way, where there's never like exactly a plot. It's mostly like here's the characters and here's the situation they're in, and this is how it develops. Like some of them are more plotty. Like King of Comedy is probably like more plotty.
Kind of.
Kind of. Yeah,
Only
even
when
that's
he
not.
kidnaps Langford.
You're right. Like, and that's in Goodfellas isn't really plotty until we get to the Billy Bats or Latanza. Like, and then it becomes a little more plotty.
And I guess
But
in the sense that the story of Christ is a plot narrative
Actually,
in and of itself.
that one is his most plotty.
But then we're about to get to fucking like Cape Fear, which
That's
is
pretty
definitely plotty, and then we get into Age of Innocence.
well, to this point, he follows like a very strange structure of film, and
Yes.
it's strange to me how popularized this is because it doesn't flow like
a
any
normal movie.
like
no.
a normal movie, and I appreciate that a lot because. I thought we'd have an easy time running down this plot, but I'm having trouble because it's all just almost like fleeting moments of just time spent with these people.
Yeah.
And that's such a strange thing to realize this far into the podcast.
Yeah, and we haven't even gotten to the
podcast.
Lufthansa heist.
Yeah, I think they actually don't they dig up his body pretty quickly after?
They
Yeah,
well, no, I think I want to say
after-
wasn't it like a year later?
After is the Karen stuff with the like her finding out about the girlfriend and like harassing the girlfriend, and then you get the gun scene that I was talking about.
Where
earlier.
Karen confronts Henry
yeah,
with the gun.
so that all
Which
happens.
is a great scene.
Yes.
It is so intense.
the
Lorraine-
way it's shot is so tense.
I don't think we've actually said it outright. Lorraine Bracco is
Or Bracco. I'm not sure if it's
Bracco.
one or the other, but she's amazing.
does give an amazing performance. Is easily, at least to this point. Did we say this already? The best female in a Scorsese
Well, definitely
movie?
a highlight in Scorsese's femme characters.
This
No,
this,
not femme fatales.
This and Liza Minnelli are
So
probably
far,
the best
yeah.
so
No, I'm
far.
with you.
I know that there are ones to come, which is
Yeah.
what we did discuss more, the Margot Robbie and the Sharon Stone. But
I mean, and I think given the situation her character's in, Jodie Foster's performance and character are,
I forget about that. Yeah,
but I
she
mean,
is-
at the same time, she's also a child prostitute, so it's like that doesn't help.
it doesn't.
Not a good
Jodie
lens.
Foster is not a child prostitute. She is an actress.
Iris.
was the child prostitute.
For clarification.
What's your name? Iris. Iris. The free name, Iris. Easy.
Damn it.
Stupid name.
I'm leaving. I'm leaving for. Was that a?
I'm so glad you guys said Iris and not Easy.
Well, yeah,
When
her
you
name's
both said her
Iris.
name.
Her name is Iris.
I know, but it just made me really happy, and I'm sure it would make her
Iris.
happy.
Iris. Wow. Can we take a moment to appreciate De Niro getting to the point of Jimmy Conway?
It's
That's
insane.
so nuts.
And that's why I was talking
Just
about his
a-
performance earlier. It's like in the background, I always forget that he's like a supporting character.
Yeah.
He's like not even in it that much
He
overall.
really isn't.
But when he's in it, he's
He's in
also
it.
just so subtle, and his
He's
performance
subdued.
is so nuanced. And I think it's because he's really using a lot of the real Jimmy Burke like quirks that he would read up
It's a
on.
lot of looks.
A lot of looks.
It's a lot of looks. It's probably his most
That
looking
look in the
performance.
bar
When it's like
when he
pushing
turns,
in on
yes,
him.
Sunshine of Your Love.
Yeah.
Oh,
With
and
the cigarette smoke and
that
he just,
did you know that Scorsese wrote a lot of the needle drops into the script? Sunshine of Your Love being one of the big ones.
I think personally that's essential. That's when it's not superfluous.
It's
That's
part
when
of the plot at that point.
It's integrated.
Yeah,
It
it's
is-
a character in the movie.
I think you need to do it. Fuck the rules.
Yeah.
Fuck people who teach people to write scripts. You're wrong. You're literally wrong.
Yeah.
Give me details about characters and songs.
I always say if you're a bona fide director, you're confirmed OFISH director, you kind of have license to write scripts in the way you want if you're going to write and direct your own shit,
I thought you said OFISH for a second, like OAFISH, not like official.
Oh, yeah. No,
I
I
realized
was
after-
shortening official, and it was really dumb.
I was like, why are you calling Marty an oaf, man? What the fuck?
oh, you're right on OFISH. Fuck. Oh.
So, anyway, the Karen stuff.
Karen!
That was pretty good. No. They do dig up the corpse first.
Oh, no, because they're about to build something over the
Yes.
the plot of land where they buried him.
So they go
and that's
dig
when we get
him
that
up.
dope red
Yeah,
shot.
that's in 70.
Yeah.
1970.
And then it's the Karen stuff because to
Yes.
get away from Karen, he's like, go to Tampa, which is when they all get arrested because they harass the guy by pulling him in the zoo, which is such just like a, what is, how do we get here?
I
Like in the
know.
movie, it's just like, yeah, okay. They're intimidating the guy in Tampa, and then his sister whistleblows on everybody, including her brother, and that's when they all go to jail. I'm pretty sure Henry gets 10 years? No,
No,
it
it's
can't
less
be
than
10.
that.
No, it's 10
Two?
years.
Oh,
he
he
is
gets,
not in
I
prison
think
for
he-
10 years,
yeah,
though,
I
is
think
he?
he gets 10, but then is let out in like 2 or something.
Yeah, it's pretty fast.
He's
But,
not in
but
there
prison
long.
is also not a big deal for mobsters. It's basically like just a cool hangout.
They
also.
they receive 10-year prison sentences, and then in 78 he's paroled. So he's there for 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
He served 4 of
That
his 10.
sounds perfect.
And he's lucky that he got put with Paulie
Yep.
and some other
Jimmy,
guy.
too,
No,
didn't
Jimmy's
he?
in a different prison.
Oh, okay.
He's like, I was sad I didn't get to do my
Oh.
time with Jimmy. Just
Yeah.
like it's summer camp.
They're literally cooking. This is where they make the prison sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is such, again, this
And they're
is,
like going into detail about the prison sauce and how you
Yeah.
gotta cut the garlic just so and like
So that it dissolves.
razor thin so it dissolves in the bottom of the
because
pan.
everything is as important. Like
Yeah.
cooking the sauce is as important to this movie as killing Billy Bats.
I can't remember whose quote
love
this is,
that.
but somebody once said if a movie doesn't teach you something, it's not a good movie.
Hey, that's fun. I have always quoted too. Scorsese himself has said like every great movie has 3 moments you'll never forget,
Interesting. Okay.
and I think
That's-
Goodfellas
that's
we've
quite
already
fair.
named like 11.
Yeah.
So suck it, everyone else.
Yes.
I guess. Scorsese laying his claim.
Yeah.
Karen in the prison stint.
When she goes to visit him,
I really liked. Honestly, like I was rooting for Karen the whole movie.
Of
I was
course.
just
Yeah.
like, dude,
She's
I
our
hope,
gal.
I hope you get out on top of this. So when she's in the prison and he's being an asshole still, which is like that
Because he sees
blows
the
my
mistress comes to
So,
visit him.
yeah,
too.
so
she saw her name on the ledger.
on the ledger, and he goes, "What? I don't put the names there." And she's like, "Fucking bullshit."
no, he
she's like,
said
"I
I
can't-
can't ask. I can't like make her come see me. Like I can't
Not
stop
come
her
see
from.
me.
Yeah, I can't make her
Yeah.
not come see me.
she comes, man.
Which is a good defense.
And then she starts pulling all these things
So
out of her
good.
jacket,
He's like, stop,
throwing them.
stop.
She's like, tell her to bring it in. He's like,
even though
"Hey."
while
Aren't his
she's
kids there too?
Yes, and they're crying,
she
I
is
think.
holding one of them.
So fucking funny.
No, he's holding one of them while she's just throwing all her shit on the table.
Karen.
I love I love that moment so much. I was like, yes, expose his ass. I love it.
But she still helps him.
No,
she
she
can't
fucking
help
helps
it.
him.
I mean, fuck,
They're in
everything's
love.
fucked. Are they?
They're Joker
This is
and
the
Harley
same thing.
Quinn. So we did previously speak about a Scorsese movie where the characters shouldn't be together but remain
Can't
together
help it.
because they like need to be at
Yeah.
the same time.
It sucks because it's like, why can't you be
Oh,
better people?
Codependency. That's right.
Uh-oh.
Well, this is when he gets out of prison. He meets up with Jimmy again, and Jimmy already fucking has the plan set and Henry's place in it for the Lufthansa.
Wait,
heist.
before Lufthansa, we start to dip into the coke. When Henry gets out of prison, he's like, fuck this, fuck the house you've been living in. I already got a plan. It's all set up. In prison, he made contacts with somebody from Pittsburgh. He's like, we're going to start bringing in coke and selling coke, which is a thing that happened with the mobs around this time, which is what divided like everything. Once drugs got involved, they say that that's a big point in The Godfather, which you obviously haven't seen, but like a major plot point is them trying to introduce drugs and Vito being like, no, that's not, we don't do that, which is what Paulie does here. He's like, please don't fuck with drugs. Just promise me. Just like, no drugs, please.
You know, I was a little confused during the prison stint because there's one specific like a little part of a scene where after they make the prison sauce and they're eating their food, Henry sort of sneaks away and like grabs some of the drugs, I think, to like give to somebody or to sell.
Yeah.
And so I was confused at that point whether or not he was selling them or if he was like taking them himself.
Probably both.
And then as soon as he gets out of prison and he has that meeting with Paulie, I just remember thinking like, yo, like at this point in the movie, I could start to see like the fall. Because like it was such a clear, like, this is the only thing you have to do to not fuck up. And I'm going to tell you it right now.
Yes.
And then I was like, oh, so he's gonna fuck up.
It's setting it up. And of course, he ignores Paulie and involves Jimmy and Tommy. He's like, we're all going to sell drugs now. And then it's the Lufthansa, the Lufthansa stuff. Because there's, Jimmy does organize it all, right?
Yeah.
How is Henry even involved? He doesn't really do anything. He's just kind of there.
I think that he's sort of like a fall guy almost. Like it's not quite that, but he just sort of watches out for him. He's just sort of making.
Well, he's not there when they do the heist.
I know he's just an element that makes sure that it's running smoothly.
Oh no, Henry's the one who got the info. Jimmy planned it, but Henry supplied the info. Somebody told Henry how in Lufthansa they fly in the currency in a cargo that they know to steal. Like, so Henry gets the info that starts it all, but Jimmy's the one who puts it together.
We see him get the info, right?
Yeah.
We see the dude who does it.
Oh, it's Maurice. It's like somehow he knows because he's like, hey, I got this thing. And that's why he starts bugging him. Like, I want my money. Give me my money. I need the money. This was my idea. Like, blah, blah, blah. So he's friends with Henry. He tells Henry. Henry goes to Jimmy. Is like, hey, Jimmy, we can this money. And then Jimmy's like, all right, let me put together a crew. So we don't see the heist, but we hear about it in the funniest scene in the movie when Leota's in the shower. And then he's listening on the radio, and they're estimating how much money's been stolen. He starts screaming, Jimmy! And he's smacking the walls.
Yeah.
That
Like,
scene's great. The smile on his face there is so good. It's
and
iconic.
it's like under the side.
Above him,
It's just
yeah.
like, why is it spending so much time? And then we get the big arm hug, Jimmy introducing Henry. Like,
And is this the Christmas scene too,
Yes.
where we get the fucking what's the song that drops there?
Shit.
Is it the Supremes Christmas song?
I think so.
I can't remember which song it is, but
It's
one of-
Mariah Carey.
All I want for Christmas is you.
That is what played in my head, though.
That's sad.
I know that's not
It
what
is
it
the
is.
only Christmas song.
I mean,
Yeah.
they try to make it out to be.
I mean, it is.
She has saturated the market, and no one else can do it.
She can't sing it anymore though.
She tries.
Yeah. So then it's post heist. Everyone's celebrating, but then
It went off without a hitch.
people
I
are
guess.
celebrating a little too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody listened to Jimmy. Jimmy said, hey, don't buy anything. They're
Mhm.
looking for the money.
Yep.
We stole, how much was it? I know it was the biggest heist at the time.
In
like,
American history,
yeah.
I couldn't tell you what the number was, but I do also want to point out that they're also not really thinking too much about the fact that Billy Batts is still dead and Tommy still killed him.
Ooh,
Right.
5 million cash, 875,000 in jewelry.
When
And-
is it that Tommy becomes a made man?
That's not yet,
Okay.
because that's when they kill him.
Is that immediately upon
Yeah,
making
because
him a made man?
he's never made one. That's why he's there.
Yeah, during the
he thinks
meeting
he's going to
be-
become
yes.
a made man. All I'm remembering is that Bob De Niro like goes up to him and is like, "Wow, like you're gonna be a made man."
It's like one of us, we all were.
Yeah, and we're
Jimmy's
working
never
for
been-
Tommy. They're
Yeah.
all gonna work for Tommy.
Yeah.
now. Oh my god.
But it's a trap,
Yep. Oh
just
my
like
god.
Hoffa.
Yeah. Fucking A.
So
Classic says.
after the Lufthansa heist is when everybody
Lufthansa.
starts
I
dying.
don't even remember.
After the L word heist, the lesbian heist. After the lesbian
No, the
heist,
other one.
everybody starts dying. And eventually it's everyone except for Tommy and Henry.
'Cause
So
Jimmy
I'm
trusts
about to say,
them.
So I wonder who killed everybody.
Yeah, no, it's no secret. Jimmy's killing everybody because he's paranoid that somebody's gonna rat somewhere along the line. So and you have the Layla sequence, which is also one of the most famous things in the movie when it's revealing all the bodies in the different ways. The guy in the garbage truck, the guy in the meat truck, people just sitting in their cars. Like it's like a full scale like get them. Like,
Yeah. Everyone gets got.
And
This is where it falls apart.
and this is where it shows that Jimmy is just as crazy because he's just a little paranoid. I mean, those people were being
A little?
dumb.
I was about to say, based off the information that we saw,
his
it's
hair
like,
goes like full gray
It
in
does.
what seems like 2 days.
But I mean, the people bought like a new car, a new coat. It's like, come on,
It
no
was
big
getting pretty
purchases.
rough,
he
man.
literally told
He's just
you
watching
guys.
it all happen. Like, you guys, oh my god.
And hey, man, I'm not going down.
Yep. And
I'm
then
not going back
meanwhile,
to
fucking
jail.
Henry is motherfucking just coked out of his mind and fucking going
Yeah.
from woman to woman away from Karen.
It's very
Depressing.
But then after the Lufthansa is when Tommy's getting made. Tommy is led to believe he's becoming a made man
yeah.
Yes.
And they think this is it. We finally did it.
because Ray Liotta and Bob De Niro were both not full Italians. They
Yeah.
only call De Niro the Irishman, but I could have sworn that they called Liotta the Irishman as well.
All I know for sure is that he says he's half Italian.
So,
Liotta?
but
Yeah.
it wasn't good
Mhm.
enough. So they could never become made men. Only pure Italians could become made men within the mob. So if Tommy became a made man, then it were because they were
They're
a
a trio.
trio. So it's like if Tommy becomes a made man, so do all of them. So there was like a brief moment of excitement.
Just like Scorsese and De Niro. All it takes is one of them to become famous, and then they'll all be famous and happy and making movies and
Amen.
friends.
Offset once said,
I want to cry.
"If your whole gang broke, then you broke too."
They
Yeah.
became friends later, though, I think, right? Because, like, De Palma with De Niro.
What are you talking about?
But they were all started around the same time.
Yeah.
Like, mid to late 60s.
Just saying, man, it's just friendship.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So
They
now in
all
the
got
movie,
tight, and it's represented beautifully.
Thank you. So they're hanging out, waiting to hear back, and then Bob finally calls, and he's like, "What's happening?" They're like, "There was nothing that could be done. Billy Bats, sorry,"
It is what it is.
and they iced him. They said,
Mhm.
"No more Tommy."
And basically, the way that I took that is like that phone call was like yeah, we killed him, and you are lucky that we are not killing you too.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
we
so
know-
just-
He took
so
the fall
just,
for you.
Just accept this. The reason that he is dead and that you are still alive.
And then we have classic De Niro freak out. Doesn't he push over the telephone booth?
Yeah, man, he gets
Foley?
fucking pissed.
I mean, because not only is he not becoming made, but like a
He's
good
dead.
friend of his is now
his
just
like
dead,
his son.
Yeah, one of his two sons.
basically.
These are my boys.
Yeah.
These are my two boys.
Yep.
My
Except-
boy.
I'm pretty sure that first scene when we see Jimmy, though, like when Henry's a kid, I'm pretty sure Jimmy's supposed to be like under 30. And it's like, De Niro is an old man already.
Hey, well, we already
I
know,
know,
that
it's
he's
just so
not really good
funny.
at that.
It's so funny. So he's like 20 years older. I guess he's like their dad. Not
It's like
their
he's
friend.
doing plays. He doesn't care.
I love it. After that, really, the big stuff is the cocaine things.
Yeah.
Because now what else is there?
The drugged out half.
Henry becomes completely unhinged.
Yeah, more needle drops, some Muddy Waters, some Harry Nielsen.
Everything's rock and roll
Everything's rock and roll.
now.
Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Yep, and then fucking we get Jimmy constantly being like, "You gotta get off the drugs, Henry. You just can't do it."
We have the scene where he gets arrested, right? Where he's like paranoid about all the helicopters and stuff, and
Yeah,
eventually
well,
they're
they're
like-
following him around because
Or is
of
that-
the
is that-
Lufthansa
he
heist
gets-
starts to come in on all of them by
he
the end,
gets
and that's what ends
arrested
up icing them all.
twice.
Yeah,
Twice.
Yeah.
The
But-
first
but
time-
the second time's at the very end.
Okay, so is that the time with the helicopters then?
Yeah.
Because this first time happens like
Way
What?
before. We
yeah,
already
it's
talked about
it's no, it's after Tommy dies. He gets arrested for the first time, and Karen flushes down all the cocaine.
it. And then we have the intense, like, 10-minute scene that's perfect of his paranoid, crazy day.
And like you can tell, like he is coked out. He looks. This is like where he looks just like not crazy intimidated, but crazy unhinged.
Yeah, he's pale. He kind of looks like a ghost. He looks like he's gonna puke at any second.
And earlier in the movie, they set up the exposition that like he was using his babysitter or nanny or whatever to help push the drugs.
That's right.
So while he's like driving around, like doing his sales and looking all paranoid, he gives a call to her. And, you know, I don't know like how old she's supposed to be, but like they just give her the demeanor of like a teenager like the whole time.
You know who
pretty
that
much.
lady is?
Who?
She plays Jimmy's wife in The Irishman.
No shit.
No way. That is so cool.
God,
Look at that.
Came back. I can't think of her name.
Sassy keeping it in the family.
As always.
That titty?
Did you know that Pacino was supposed to be in this as
Yeah,
Jimmy?
you said that he turned it down and then did something even more stereotypical.
Dick Tracy, in which he was nominated for an Oscar against Joe Pesci, who beat him.
That could be me. No, wait, probably not, because he would have been De Niro's part.
Yes.
But still.
He
not
wins
have
for
been
Scent of a
reserved.
Woman.
No.
Would not have
Pacino
been-
would not have fit
Would
that.
not have been reserved
He
in
wins for
any
Scent of a
sense.
Woman.
Son of a
Eventually.
woman. You smell beautiful.
That's the movie
But-
with Ooh. That's the
Nice.
one.
I've never seen
He's
it.
on the phone. I don't remember exactly what he says to her, but it's something drug related, and he says, "Oh, and don't call on off the house phone. Like, go make a
Right.
call on a separate
I
phone."
think it's something about booking the flight. Like,
Yeah.
don't do it on the phone so they know, like, what you're doing. And he's been paranoid because he's being followed by the helicopters. He also has to pick up his brother. He has to make the sauce for dinner. He has to sell these guns to Jimmy because for some reason, Jimmy asked for them. And he sees all these people in this day. And then it turns out that it was the FBI following him all day. So he gets arrested as he's about to leave to pick up the girl's hat because she won't fly without her lucky hat. And he's pulling outside, and all the police are out there waiting for him. And that's when Karen panics and flushes all the coke. And then they pick him up and stuff. They might pick up everybody he visits that day. I think they do, like including Jimmy and stuff. Everybody gets arrested. And then when she bails him out by putting him to house, like he said. And then he's like, "We needed that coke for money. I can't believe this, Karen. You fucked us." And she's like, "What was I supposed to do?" Which, fair.
What was she supposed to do?
Nothing. You flush it or like have a floorboard ready to put it in, like you idiots. Like you should have had that ready. If you're gonna be involved, you better have a hiding spot.
We keep all our cocaine in the cupboards. What do you mean?
So Paulie, he goes to him because he needs help, and he's like, "You didn't listen to me. I told you not to fuck with these drugs. Here's $3,200. I never want to see you again." This hits me now that I've seen it enough times and seen The Irishman. I know it doesn't directly have the same emotional impact because it doesn't
hit me.
spend as much time, but it has these same feelings of like betrayal and like how could these friendships like completely dissipate?
Yeah,
and
dude.
it hurts.
I mean,
me.
fucking, it hurts me too. But the other thing that's interesting about this is like in The Irishman, it's not so much like Jimmy betraying Frank ever. It's always, well, in The Irishman, it's only Frank betraying Jimmy.
Right, Frank torn
But-
between his two worlds.
Exactly. But then in this, it's Jimmy betraying Henry a bit, like before Henry finally betrays him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like they taunt each
Because
other a bit.
After the money, Jimmy's like, "Hey, I'll help you out," but he's clearly going to kill them.
Yeah. Well,
Like
De
he
Niro's
tricks
starting to
Karen.
develop his motto of, you know, how you can't develop too many attachments because
Right.
or that you wouldn't drop in 30 seconds flat if you saw the heat around the corner.
After Jimmy's stint of like pure paranoia and attempting to like threaten them, that's when we turn to the FBI. And that's when Jimmy is faced with the proposition to join the witness protection program, which obviously comes at the cost of ratting out on your friends,
Yeah.
which, if we remember from the beginning of the movie, was the one lesson.
Before we get too far ahead, I wanted to say that I think the reason that scene with Paulie and Henry hits so fucking hard is that the actor who plays Paulie
Old.
does a very, very good job at like facial expressions. Like it's
Ha.
not just like a here you go, like fuck off, like sorry buddy. It's like a
He looks
handing him that money pained like everything in him. Like he was so because it's like that's
losing your son.
that's like one of your kids, man. Like you watch this guy grow up, work for you, and do all this shit, and now you got to turn to the wayside to save yourself, not knowing that no matter what, you're damned.
Paul Sorvino is the actor's name.
And real quick,
Good shit.
Paul Sorvino,
Paulie,
Yeah.
3 days before production began, called his agent. He wouldn't have been in the movie, would he have?
oh, I thought you meant release.
No. 3 days before the movie started shooting, he kind of had a falling out of his confidence in this particular part and thought that he wasn't capable of playing this cold-hearted mobster.
Really?
And called his agent and said, "Release me from this movie. I can't do it." And his agent was like, "I think you should think about it, and then call me back in 24 hours." And then later that night, Paul Sorvino was in his house in his bathroom. He turned and looked at himself in the mirror, and he said the facial expression he had on his face in that moment scared himself. And it was in that moment he realized he could play Paulie Cicero.
That's pretty wild.
Yep. So just hilarious that you specifically cite his facial expressions.
It's painful.
They're very good.
Yes.
Can I actually rewind one more second? I'm so sorry. We
what?
skirted right past it. The whole sequence where he's going about his day.
Yeah, the drug day.
Yeah, that's like one of the top triumphs of Scorsese's like filmmaking.
Oh yeah,
right?
dude. The fuck don't.
The way- it's like the fastest paced like sequence. You feel the paranoia.
You
I
feel the
like
anxiety, yeah.
I'm wrapped up in the world. The sauce part makes me feel happy.
Yep.
Like I don't know. I just like I feel like that's him on full throttle. And if I had to pull like one sequence to be like, show me them at the height of their powers, I'm like, probably that, because it is the climax of the movie.
I don't know though, man. I mean, it's
Up to
long.
this point.
I think if you're trying to find something more concise, yeah. Okay, fine. Then I won't talk.
Because that's all I'm viewing this as. I'm
Up to
trying
this
to
point, sure.
pretend that the future doesn't happen.
Yes. Okay.
As
for
best
sure.
I can. The
For sure.
Irishman's obviously impossible to ignore. But.
Yes.
So the witness protection, they offer it to him. He's panicked. He realizes what this means, so he accepts it. It's his only option. He has no more ties to the mob. He has no way to get a job. He's never going to do anything else, so this is my deal. I'm going to take it, protect me and my family.
And the
gotta
FBI
rat
guy
out my
that he
friends.
rats to
Oh.
is the real guy.
Really?
The real Henry
He's
Hill
weirdly
ratted
like
to.
feels like a hammer coming out of nowhere. Like that guy owns that scene. He's
Wait,
like,
Henry Hill, like the Henry Hill?
Yeah.
Yes.
Stars in the movie.
no.
The guy who like the FBI guy who he's ratting to is the real FBI guy who the real Henry Hill ratted to.
I see.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that guy, like, literally, I love that fucking scene. He's commands my attention.
Mhm.
And he's like, here's what's going to happen. Like, you got no options. And then while they're talking, you get the showing over it, all the people being arrested, Paulie and Jimmy, and probably some other people I don't remember. But those are the two important ones. Henry completely turned his back on everyone. And then we have what feels to me the Irishman equivalent moment of when he's testifying in court. Can you point to the man for us? And he points right at Jimmy. And the look on De Niro's face when he's wearing those funny glasses that
Big
makes
glasses.
his eyes huge and he looks weak.
What a bold, creative choice by Martin Scorsese to put those goddamn goofy fucking glasses on him.
They almost look like his mom's glasses.
Like, they give him, like, gerbil eyes.
I mean, you do that for jury softening. Look at this guy. He couldn't hurt a fly. Look how
Yeah.
silly he
No, but
looks.
he wears them one more time. Like
Oh,
you,
yeah,
you
earlier.
start,
Oh,
you
Earlier in the
start-
movie, he is wearing them just
You're right.
casually. I think it's in the restaurant,
I
but like the
think so,
last time they're in
too.
that diner
I just remember being
toward
like,
the end,
whoa. is
where
this
there's
a
that
joke?
crazy push zoom in the diner.
Yeah.
That's crazy. We didn't talk about that. But fucking, I thought it was interesting seeing it this time that I remembered in that moment when fucking Henry, because it's so fucking like pathetic the way Henry does it, where he
Where
just
he
like
points.
casually points and like leans over to his left to point
Because he
at
can't
Jimmy.
look at him.
Right. But fucking, I think it's interesting how in that scene, the very beginning of the movie, the final scene in which we see Henry in his youth before he grows into a man in the fucking jump cut to the next scene, Jimmy is pointing right at fucking Henry saying, "Never rat on your friends," putting his index finger right in his face.
It hurts me.
Both pointing at each other at the beginning and ends of this movie.
Just to know how much you wanted this and how much it turns away. It's just like, imagine being on that stand and you're pointing at your friend.
Right.
They'd be pointing at one of you guys.
I know.
You imagine?
It would be awful.
Just the betrayal. And he doesn't linger on it nearly as much as he does in other films. And it's
Mhm.
not like this emotionally poignant moment because they keep it moving. Like that, isn't that when he walks off the stand and talks to the
Yes.
camera?
And did we mention that he also rats out Paulie?
Yeah.
Yeah, both of them. Okay. So he gets off the stand, he fucking walks to the camera and is talking. I forget what his monologue is.
It's
But
basically
then the movie
Just
literally
talking about all the things that they did.
I'm an average nobody. I get to live the rest of my life like a schnook.
Yep, it ends. We get that tracking shot along this American suburbia of the early 80s.
And now he's
And we
anybody
see
else.
fucking Henry standing in his doorway in a robe, grabbing the newspaper off the porch. And then we get his iconic homage to the Great Train Robbery, the early silent Western film, where a character,
Pesci.
cowboy character, points directly at the camera with a gun and shoots, like
Yeah.
point blank at the camera. Pesci does the same thing in a jump cut between Henry staring at the camera out of his porch and then going back into his house. There's that cut between that with Pesci. And I think to me that just reads as like, no matter what, that's never going to leave him. Like he's never going to be able to escape
Oh,
like
that's a good read on it.
that lifestyle, or at least the past of the memories and everything. Like fucking, it's always going to be right behind him to shoot him.
Smart.
Or he's always going to have to be looking behind his back always, no matter what anyway. Because he's in witness protection. If they found him and recognized him, they'd kill him. Probably.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole idea of why you're there.
Witness protection, exactly.
So I think I always thought of it as the more meta element. Like we've talked about how The Irishman should be the end of this genre. Like it is feels like the final words that should ever be said about gangsters.
Yes.
It won't be, unfortunately. But I feel like this is almost Scorsese intentionally saying it, like from the Great Train Robbery all the way to here. This is what we've done, beginning to end.
Well,
like, obviously, Scorsese probably wasn't that, like, megalomaniacal to be like, I did it. But it feels like it a little bit. Like, it's from here to now. Like, this is where we've trekked in the history of cinema, which is obviously something he's cared about and been fascinated with always. And to relate it to his own film of, like, at the very least, if not saying, like, here's the definitive thing, it's like, here's the next evolution.
Yeah.
It's like calling your shot, man. And I feel like that's what this whole movie is. Like, after the tumultuous experiences of both kind of Color of Money and Last Temptation, to be like, fine, fuck you, here it is. Like, here's what you want from me.
I think it's funny how his future trajectory kind of reflects similarly to John Ford's jump between The Searchers and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which both are kind of Death of the West movies, despite The Searchers being a bit more grand in its projection of the West and whatnot. And the movie is so incredible. It's far more dark than The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, at least outwardly. I know we talked about it briefly in the Taxi Driver podcast, and being that movie's sort of a loose remake. So Scorsese's already got that influence in him, but I think that he does for the gangster film what John Ford does for the Western with those two films almost, where he kind of takes the lens towards something darker, towards something that people have a harder time reckoning with. I think that if anything, is what you'd think would make Goodfellas a tougher movie for people to watch end to end. But that's where I think it faults for me slightly, in that it rushes that ending so quick, and it keeps that same fast pace of the rest of the movie, which then keeps the energy kind of fun. Like you said, the fall is even kind of fun. Not saying that that's a bad thing, because I still think it works for this particular movie given where it ends.
Because, I mean, it's
that's why I
cocaine
think,
energy.
Right. And that's why I think The Searchers is similar, where, like, he literally is coming out of a doorway at the end of the movie, and then he walks back into a dark doorway, just like fucking John Wayne is out the open door and fucking it shuts, whatever. And then similar to The Irishman, where it's a Death of the West movie and a Death of the Gangster movie again, but in fucking The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, there's a whole point in it with this line of dialogue: when legend becomes fact, print the legend. And I think that's curious how Scorsese takes the true story of Hoffa's disappearance and probable murder and tools it into a legend, tools it into a myth. And it creates these characters that I think honestly will carry through the ethos of storytelling if movies continue to resonate with future generations over the course of time. The Irishman will endure if people continue to look at movies in the way that, they hopefully should.
I think if there's two Scorseses that have any chance, it's Goodfellas and The Irishman.
Yeah.
To, like, forever endure, I think you have a better likelihood of Taxi Driver and Raging Bull falling to the wayside than those two.
Oh, yeah.
Like, from a, just trying to view from a cultural standpoint.
I don't know. I guess I didn't necessarily feel the cultural impact of The Irishman.
Well, it's coming.
As opposed to the impact of Taxi Driver and Goodfellas. Like, just in terms of, like, the aftershocks that they've left on not only filmmaking, but just society in general, and those kind of reflections. So if I were picking two, I would say those would be the two that might stand the test of time, if time is real.
It isn't.
I don't know. Irishman definitely just, I think because it is so much of an update on things that he has already done, there might not be as much, like, merit in terms of, like, I don't know, I guess it's contribution. Unless I mean, we do have to wait for the coming years to see what happens. And right now, filmmaking is in sort of like this weird, like limbo right now. So
No, man, I think it is only fitting that the man who fucking shapes the genre fucking puts the end to it too.
if there's one thing we know about Hollywood is they don't know how to stop.
Yeah,
so
That's
that is
very
true.
true. Well, I'm not saying the gangster movie won't necessarily have some offshoots from this point forward, but Scorsese was the reigning voice over the genre, like we said. We're starting with this movie, essentially. He test drives it with Mean Streets, and then he fucking,
Dabbles in Raging Bull.
what about The Godfather? Like, how is that different in terms of like being revered than the Goodfellas?
I mean, Godfather's more revered overall.
Oh, yeah.
It's way
Both
more
of them are.
serious.
But not
definitely.
for mob reasons.
no, for mob reasons.
It's
They're-
very
I
authentic
was
to
gonna
real,
say-
true mob life.
the two
But, so do
Godfathers
people-
are more revered than Goodfellas.
And they're longer
do
than
people-
Goodfellas by a huge stretch.
Do people not equate? That's John Ford.
No, that's Coppola.
Do people not equate Coppola with being a like gangster movie guy? So
Not
is that the
really.
difference between Sessi and him in terms of like, while The Godfather might be like a more revered mobster movie, Scorsese is a more revered like gang filmmaker?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think it's
basically.
just because Goodfellas created a language, whereas like The Godfather just sort of set the narrative standard for that kind of genre filmmaking. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and it's way more dramatic and easier to digest.
Yeah, I mean, like
Godfather?
Goodfellas plays
Yeah.
like this in a micro way, whereas I think The Godfather is like a elongated
it's
tragedy.
An opera.
Yeah, it's an operatic tragedy.
It's about family
Tragedy.
and lineage and like generational ties across time
Yep.
and like
Hereditary.
or Place Beyond the Pine. Yes. I mean, keep it running forever. Just
The family.
and it's definitely more narrative driven and stuff, and it feels more like a standard movie, but it's just better than 99% of them, and it's like a tried and true drama
One
more
of the
than
greatest
anything.
screenplays like of all time.
Oh, we have not talked about that. Goodfellas, the writing
Yeah.
is fucking incredible.
Because and also
Every
I think
like
the fact that
line of dialogue is just like whoa.
I read that Scorsese and the cast would like rehearse and improv and rehearsal and stuff, and then Scorsese would like take notes or record what they were saying, and then he'd retool it into the fucking script later on.
You know who else did that with every movie?
Derek Steinfeld?
No, Cassavetes.
Oh well, that makes sense.
His papa, his friend.
So do you think he taught him that?
Of course.
Makes me so
I
happy.
know it's beautiful.
Gotta
Anyway.
make each other happy.
But literally, this is the first time I've really thought about it. Where especially in the first like 30 minutes, the amount of like quotable lines and like everything hit my ear so nicely. I was just like, oh, who wrote this? This fucking slaps. Apparently, everybody. Is it time to be blunt?
I think at this point it's appropriate to be blunt, given the fact that this is
Let's
easily the
be
longest podcast on
blunt.
the Chronic Canon. So I think that says something about our good old fellas.
So let's be blunt.
Let
Oh,
me
yeah.
blame
It's in the.
I'm Frank,
I'm Jesse.
Brandon.
and I think that this is the best movie so far, and it's gonna have a hard time being dethroned. I wonder if anything will, as if we haven't talked about how The Irishman's all of our favorites a million times. But pretending that doesn't exist, this has a strong claim for me personally as being the like crown jewel. I think it's everything Scorsese's tried to do up to this point, and doing it on full cylinders, not just him, but everybody involved. Obviously, this isn't one of De Niro's best performances, but he's great, but I wouldn't put it up there with any of the other ones up to this point. Like, it's impressive in its own right, but it's no
Well,
Taxi
he's
Driver,
he's
Raging Bull,
doing
whatever.
the work that's needed to be done, and it's
Exactly.
not much.
So
I
it's
don't know. It's like
Very nuanced.
It's
like I
great.
said.
I'm
Yeah.
not
it's
not
like
knocking
being
it.
the lead versus being a supporting. He does
Exactly.
well in both.
I just think everybody brought their fucking A game. I think this is Ballhouse's best work. I think it's Schoonmaker. I don't know how to say her fucking name. Thelma's best work so far. Pesci.
I'd make arguments that Ballhaus did some incredible work with Fassbender that could rival this, but I'd have to watch them again to
That's all I gotta say.
ensure.
And I don't know. I think this is full throttle filmmaking that just excites me, and I will be devastated if you guys don't want to put this in the can.
No, I bump up my grade.
That's all I wanted. Well, Brandon,
I guess, long story short, it does belong in the canon. I'm putting it in there
Confirm.
because I like this movie, you
I know
guys.
you do.
I thoroughly enjoyed it and had a great time despite the conflicting feelings that it gave me.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Didn't even conflict me nearly as hard as
It's
all the other
supposed to.
Sassy.
yeah,
No, I mean it wrote me in, and I was definitely enamored in the world. And while I was watching it, I thought it was great, and it was like, I'm always nervous now with Sese because he's made me anxious so many times that it's just like, I don't know what you're gonna give me. Are you gonna give me misery,
You
or
just
am
think
I
he's
gonna
one of
have
those guys that's 3 steps away from being racist at all times.
Well, I walk on my tippy toes. Okay.
Which is fair.
So, and you guys know I'm always on the lookout, and there were some questionable moments in the movie, but I feel a little bit more comfortable writing them off, I guess, in this context, just because they're relatively small things. It's not nearly as poignant as something like Taxi Driver was, but in the days after, I don't know. I think something very peculiar just occurred to me about crime in America and just how deeply rooted the racism goes in ways that you don't see. Like it's, we know about segregation, and we know about, the civil rights movement and all of that. Like we know, I guess, about the legality of the struggle for, minorities in America. But I guess something that I've never really thought about other than the effects of crime is how racism has affected crime. Cause I don't know, I was just driving a couple days after watching it, and I just had the thought, because I was having a good time. I was just remembering Ray Liotta, and I was like, man, he's so pretty and he's so intense, and he really gets what's coming to him. And I was like, man, not enough though. I started thinking about the broad, just plot points, the things that made Henry who he was. Henry's I guess just character traits. And I was like, all right, idealizes crime, okay? Has a need for wanting a family other than his own, which I think is so normal. Cheats on his girlfriend, sells drugs, and ultimately has this downfall. And then I started thinking about how those are stereotypical character types for just minorities. Not even in movies or in film, but in real life too. There's just this general connotation that people, they cheat on their girlfriends and they sell drugs and they push and peddle drugs, but it's not fun. I don't know, the representation just fucked with me a little bit when I was thinking about it. And I just thought about how I started thinking more about all right, well, what is organized crime? Because I can't say just broadly that there is no there are no African Americans specifically in organized crime, because there's just too many. There's too many people in the world for that not to be a factor.
Yes.
But I started thinking about the movies that people enjoy, the crime-related movies and the mobster things like that. And I don't know, I just sort of started noticing a connection of one thing being idolized because of how it's presented versus another thing being damned. And and then I started struggling with that in terms of how it made me view the movie. But I don't know, taking a step back and also talking to you two and just sort of viewing the movie alone, like suspended in animation, just as a thing that exists by itself, it is good and it has merit. But I think that it would be I would be ignoring such a huge, I don't know, societal factor if I wasn't thinking about the way that it sort of reflects America and what we sort of prioritize. Because all crime is bad, but at least white crime is fun to look at. At least that's what is being sort of pushed forward. And that's not to say that all these mobster movies don't have merit. It's just something that I sort of just realized that's sort of ringing underneath. Overall, I think Goodfellas is great. And upon watching and thinking about it more, there's so many just references to the rap game. I think is full of Henrys.
Yeah.
To quote Kanye West specifically, my whole life I looked up to the dope man. The dope man was the only man I knew who wasn't broke.
Yeah.
And it's that is literally how Henry feels. And
Henry came from nothing.
That's just one specific line, but so many, I don't know, rappers and artists in general sort of push that the reason I went into crime is because it was the only thing that I knew. But these people get bashed on the news, and these people aren't necessarily
okay,
and they're a little idolized in a different way.
The same way the Italian mob is
Right.
also damned by the news and then idolized too. Film culture obviously pop culture propels crime and criminals as it always has, because it's people who are breaking out of society to live by there's own rules.
Right.
There's the quiet Wild West mentality that exists inside of society, as we're slowly seeing unearthed by the internet. It's becoming more and more reality every day. And I think everything you're touching upon is just you're getting to the point of the ingrained racism that functions all society at every facet of everything.
I just think it's crazy that even after 22 years, like, I just feel like I keep finding new, just like, oh, this is just another sign
Yeah.
of the foundation of fucking this country.
Because I was going to say, like, it's because who are the audiences at the time, at least, who were being marketed toward to, quote unquote, be able to go to the movies. And then you're now breaking down into classist issues and, like, the way that people of minorities are held down and not allowed to excel in society. So then we don't have to market our culture towards them, including our films or our TV or whatever. So cool, we'll make it towards the white people, which then also makes sense what you were just saying, why movies like Goodfellas or Scarface are adopted by, I'm at least going to say rap culture, because I know that as a fact, because it's relatable as it can be by what's allowed by the racist blockers that propel our society. Like, that's as close as representation as many people were able to get for a
Yes.
long time.
Yes.
And that is a problem. That's not Scorsese's fault.
No.
It's
Not in any sense.
society's fault. And at least he's being true to his, because, I mean, and we did talk about this briefly on the phone, like, the history of Italians in America is like a weirdly complicated thing involved with a lot of racism and hate, which is how
Yes.
they turned to organized crime and, like, figured it out in New York because they had no other options. They were the dirty immigrants that just came off the boat. Fuck you, you're not going to take our jobs. Still happening today.
Yes.
Everything cycles fucking forever.
We're just switching
It's
off.
just as long as you're not Anglo-Saxon white person who has been grounded here forever, those are the only gatekeepers to everyone else. You
And
know?
that has what you were saying about just film and the audiences that it markets towards. That has always been something that has been just like a big struggle when watching these old movies. Because on
Yes.
one hand, it's like I am viewing just clear and like blatant racism, and
Yes.
like as a person, I don't like that. But then I'm also struggling with the idea that as shitty as it, like, it's always bad, but at the time it just wasn't. And I think that's
Mhm.
actually what is the core frustrating. It's like, how could anybody look at this and be like, this is okay? And it's like, because it was. If everyone is telling you, like, we hated gay people 20 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Like, we only just, like, I mean, it's hard to believe now just because of how open everything is, but
Mhm.
there's still places in the world that hate gay people.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, it's weird because you don't want to place the blame, I guess, on the content itself, but I can't exactly take it away because it's a contributing factor. So it's both and both. I know that, I try not to take it too far in terms of just like having utter disdain, because I do think that I will miss out on just overall just like wonderful pieces of art. But I think that letting too much get, like, I don't know, if I don't focus enough, then I think that there are important things that I would be missing out.
That's
Like, I'm glad that I got these thoughts off of a movie like Goodfellas
Yeah.
because I was paying attention.
I mean, that is very valuable. And maybe this is my own fault because everybody does it for people and whatever, but I personally give Scorsese the benefit of a doubt that he's not ignorant to what he's doing. Because I
Yes.
feel like they did drop the N-word in this movie. I remember.
did,
I
one time.
cringed. I was like, I can't believe it.
Wait
here
a minute.
too.
We never even talked about Tommy fucking shooting
Oh, Sam Jackson.
Sam Jackson and Michael Imperioli.
Yeah, you're
Which-
right. We skipped over both those parts.
I mean, we said that he killed
Adds
people.
to fucking Tommy's hubris, which is a word we haven't used yet, weirdly
Yes.
enough. But the hubris is strong in this movie, and also funny enough that Michael Imperioli is in this, just to talk about the cultural significance of this movie again briefly, because David Chase, the creator of The Sopranos, said that seeing this movie is what led to the inception of that show.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. The
Yes.
lineage carries on, and
Mhm.
Sopranos is the long form version of all these same things. Just the Italian American drama. But Scorsese has proven, I feel like, time and time again, that he uses these like negative bad things with these negative bad characters. I feel like the behavior always is associated with these things. So it's like I never feel like it's condoning racism, which is prevalent in these people that are mobsters, which are, again, that's a whole other can of worms of deep-rooted racism and everything. But like, because he's not dropping the N-word in every movie that he's made, it's only been in these like less good people. The Travis, Mean Streets, and Goodfellas. Those are the three I remember. At least, I guess it could be
Same.
more. Fuck.
Maybe in Raging Bull.
I'm not.
It's not.
I
It's
don't
not
think
in
it
Raging
is.
Bull. It's only in Mean Streets. Taxi Driver, and Goodfellas.
Okay, so and those are three clear cases of like, okay, these aren't good guys.
Now
these are the
That
lowest.
plays into their
form.
sights of the world.
as of right now, we are 12 movies
Mhm.
deep in with Scorsese, and that is a lot of time to get to know him as a director and sort of see his vision in the films that he makes. And I think that Mean Streets and Taxi Driver were just so early in his career that it was really hard
Yes.
for me to like know his intention, and that's something I struggle with. Like I feel like if I watched these movies without you guys, it would have turned into like just disdain
Mm.
because you guys being more familiar with not only filmmaking but just Sassy in general, being able to help me sort of like see that, you know, this isn't necessarily like, it might be a reflection of a part of him, but it doesn't mean that it's who he is like right now, you know?
Yes.
So I try my best to like separate all these different elements, but it's just one of the things that makes movie watching a little bit more difficult.
I'd be
for me.
curious to know if anyone's ever asked him about that in his career.
About the use of the N-word.
Well, just the racism that takes place in some of his movies, and if that has anything to do with anything at the core of his being.
I just feel like The Irishman is really telling for like, I don't know, just like maturity and growth in
Oh, yeah,
terms of
big
like
time.
you can show people that are bad and aren't good people, and you don't necessarily have to reflect the racism because we know that racism is here. Like you don't necessarily have to like, you know, push it out and put it in people's faces. Like you can use other more creative ways to like, or you can make people multifaceted. I think that's like the best part of The Irishman is everyone has layers. Like there are parts where you're like, oh, Jimmy Hoffa's like the Godfather, like he's so
Yeah.
great. And then there are some parts where it's like, oh shit, you're doing just as much shady shit,
Yeah.
dude. Like you're just the same as all these mobsters. You're just in the union.
I think that Scorsese's thing has always been, not always, there's obviously fucking exceptions, but most of the time seems like he's just turning the camera toward reality and he's not trying to hide away from the ugliness. And this is a movie that I think revels in the ugliness to try to make other people understand how this happens, you know?
Mm.
So I think it's impressive at the very least to say that even with all those thoughts and all those understandings that you can still mine value individually from Goodfellas and like undoubtedly makes its claim in the history of film, like
Yeah.
as an important work culturally, critically, for us personally, whatever. Like I'm glad that we are for sure saying it's in the canon.
Oh yeah, no
It
doubt.
is in.
And I think our discussion on the movie definitely elevated my opinion of it a bit.
There are three things I need to say that we forgot just before we walk away from Goodfellas.
The budget.
Forever.
The budget.
The budget.
The budget at the time, $25 million. Today, $49 million.
Okay.
We're finally at a point where the inflation rate is not over 100%. So that's fun. In the 90s, we were still at 96%. So
Oh,
it's
great.
Yeah.
Great.
Sick.
So and then it made 46.8, which is 91.8 today. So
That's
it
like
made
not as
like,
much as Color of Money.
No, and it doubled its budget, but it was such a critical success, and it has such a huge
Home
life
video
on
and
home
TV.
video,
Oh my
this movie's
God.
on all the time. Like this is a staple of
How
because
did I not see?
because you're not dad watching Sunday TNT. That's what this fucking movie was made for. Heat, Goodfellas, The Godfather. It's
This
just
is
like
the movie
Shawshank.
where you stand with your cup of coffee
Yeah, just
and you
like,
walk in on your
love
son
this part.
as he's watching the movie, and you're like, "Oh shit, are this your first time, dude?
oh,
Oh,
Spider's
man.
about to die. What?
Oh my god.
You'll see.
Oh fuck, Wangro."
Exactly. So
I will say Shawshank Redemption was a movie that I remember, like just going through the guide, I remember always seeing Shawshank Redemption playing somewhere.
it's literally all the time. That's how that movie became so fucking huge. It wasn't even that. I mean, it was definitely heralded at the time, but it did become the mega movie until it was on like TV every year for like 90% of the time. And actually, I don't remember the other thing I was gonna say. So fuck it. That's all I had to say to wrap up on.
That's the one, too. Okay, one quick little thing because you made me think about it. What was like I don't know, like a critically acclaimed movie that you just happened to see on TV? Something like someone like, oh yeah, I just happened to fucking turn the TV on and it was Goodfellas, so I watched the whole thing. You got anything out the top of your head? I was just curious.
I feel like the Defiant Ones is the only thing I can think of.
I don't know. I just
So-
remember one day at work, like when we first started talking about like doing something for February for Black History Month, and I listed like 3 movies that I considered like black movies, and Frank was like, "Oh, seen those." I was like, how? He goes, TV, just on.
Yeah, okay, now I'm thinking, like, I wasn't thinking young enough now. Because that was my entire movie watching way. It was like, I turn on the TV, this thing is on, now I'm watching it.
Yeah.
I forget about that. That was most of my time between, like, Spike, BET, FX, Comedy Central, occasionally AMC, but just like, what movie now? Now I watch this. I think it's Screwed, but that's not critically acclaimed. That's Norm Macdonald and Dave Chappelle. I watched that movie many times because it was just on Comedy Central. Like, oh, cool. I
Mine
am now
is
watching this.
Titanic. I saw Titanic when I was 5
Oh, yeah.
because it was. I walked
cry, boy.
downstairs and my sister had just started it, and I was like, "Whoa, big boat!" Sat down, and then by the end, I was standing in the basement bawling.
You know, I watched Titanic in the same way. Turned on the TV. It was the second half only. I skipped all of the beginning and just saw the boat, and I was crying. I was just like, oh, these people. When it shows the old couple laying there, just like accepting it, I was crying. I was like my grandparents. I was just like, I can't. I literally saw none of the beginning. So when Jack and Rose were a thing, I was like, what's this whole thing? I was just like, what? Why is that man trying to shoot them?
I just remember holding in like the feeling of sadness, and then when she finally pushes Leo off the boat, I just remember going like, "Oh no!"
There was enough room.
There was totally
Take
enough
turns.
room.
Did they do it on
you swap
Mythbusters?
out.
I probably.
We should fact check it eventually.
No, they
but-
did. Someone definitely, if not the
was the
Mythbusters,
Mythbusters.
built a replica of the door that she was hanging on.
Take turns. Also.
But also Leo was stupid. No, it's cool. I got it.
Yeah, no, you don't. You
Chivalry doesn't pay.
you big hubristic dummy.
I just like how they make him frost it over after being in the water for like 6 hours.
I mean, I probably saw Halloween for the first time on TV.
Just like an accident almost.
No, I was probably looking for it
Oh,
because
okay.
like I watched fucking like the Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments.
Oh, yeah,
and
that
learned
was
about every
huge.
amazing horror movie and watched that fucking special over and over and over
Me
and
too.
over. Spoiled
Many
so many
movies.
for myself.
You
and I'm
finally start
so
to watch it,
upset
you're like,
about it. I'm like,
"Aw."
God damn it! But you know what? There's a part of my childhood that
Yeah.
like makes it warm.
I would
so
have
I'm
never
like,
heard
okay.
about a ton of movies
Oh,
without it.
seriously.
Like I
none of
think
them.
about Audition.
Yep.
I was spoiled. It's just
Suspiria.
like, oh, I don't remember even that being on there.
Yeah, that was
actually.
definitely in there.
Texas Chainsaw.
Yep.
I knew all the scary moments
Psycho.
because of it. Yep. Well, I mean, that was spoiled forever ago.
Jaws.
Didn't know what happened halfway through. That blew my mind when I finally watched Psycho. I was like, damn, I just assumed that was the ending.
Yeah, right. That's true.
Yeah, bitch. I shouldn't have spoiled it for you. Oopsies. You're
Halfway
never
through?
gonna. You're never
God
gonna.
I
watch
mean,
it.
I
You're
don't
not
want to
gonna
watch
watch it.
Psycho.
Yeah, you
But
don't.
that is crazy.
Kinda
I watched the first season of Bates Motel.
Yeah, that's a terrible show.
I mean, I like the main character.
Norman
he's
Bates,
like, no, the actor, Logan Lerman.
Freddie Hyman.
What
Freddie
about?
Highmore?
It's not Logan.
I
Lerman.
know.
What the
Freddie Highmore. Hyman.
what about movies
Hyman.
that
Fuck.
are blind spots? You know, you checked off Goodfellas. You know, what are some of your big cinema sins?
You guys definitely have harped on me about multiple movies.
You?
So
Yeah,
what
every
do you-
movie ever.
The Godfather.
It's hands down. If you haven't seen The Godfather, you haven't seen movies. Sorry,
I mean,
it is
yeah,
the movie.
that's probably
Alright.
the biggest one.
And Frank
All right,
is
name
almost
some-
all like another for sure. Jaws.
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 That's the one I think of when I'm like, what haven't I? Right, Jaws. I can't believe I've never done that
And
still to
me,
this day.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Eh,
That's probably
There's
my biggest one.
No, Lord of the Rings.
Ah, yes.
true, I haven't seen Lord
Any
of the
of
Rings either.
Yeah.
Ah,
I've-
well then maybe that's yours.
No, Godfather over
Godfather,
Lord of
yeah,
the
okay.
Rings. I think that for like thinking of like widespread.
too. Especially when people hear it, they're pretty fucking shocked.
Yeah,
Generally, I don't think most people are. I mean, like movie people will be shocked when I say I haven't seen Good, the Bad.
I
and the
feel
Ugly.
like that's the big one.
I'm about to
for ya.
rectify that.
I can't think of a different thing for you other than Lord. That's the one that came to my mind
No,
immediately.
that's pretty obvious. I don't know how I missed that one. It's a blind
Jaws,
spot.
I'm just mad. I started Jaws one day and I was so hype. I was ready. Like what my dad just he just turned it on and I was like, does this all take place in one day? It's about to be the best movie ever. He's
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't.
and he went, what? No, and I went, I don't care anymore. And I walked away. I was
God
like,
damn it,
another
Frank.
time. I was like, I'll watch it another time. But when I was like, please tell me this is like, there's a shark. Dun, dun, we have to get to every beach.
We should
Dun, dun,
watch
we have
that
to
soon.
warn them. It's on my list of
we all
like
gotta watch it soon. I want to see
movies
it
to
again.
watch soon.
Good summer movie.
I mean, there's 200 movies on that said list, but
Yeah, I mean it's true.
it's there.
Yes.
It's something.
Well, I mean, yeah. So I feel like those are definitely the biggest ones for each of us.
All right, one more question.
Yeah.
We talked about talking about it and we didn't.
Yeah.
What's the first crime you guys remember ever consciously committing?
Oh.
Come on, Brandon.
Probably like theft. I'm trying to think about like
Mine
the,
was definitely theft. Dude.
I mean,
Theft, yeah.
I mean, I hope it's theft.
Ah,
When
nah.
I killed that dog. Like
It was
When I choked his living heart out.
it was definitely like trespassing. I didn't know the word. I didn't know the
So
word.
not theft.
It wasn't theft. It was
Okay.
trespassing, and I didn't know like the word trespassing at the time. I just remember having the conscious thought of like, oh, we aren't supposed to go in here,
but I'm
but I really wanna. Like
Nice.
everything we want is over here. I'm
How old?
going. It was when I was still in elementary school, like the first grade, so
Yeah.
maybe like 6 or 7, and it was
what was the place?
it was the okay. So there's an element. I went to elementary school, and it was Bow, and I lived like right down the street. Like me and my sister would walk to school.
Okay.
But right next to that school, like a couple blocks away, was an abandoned school that they hadn't
Demolished.
demolished yet. So it was like a high school, but it had like it wasn't like a play set in the back, but it was like basically like an intricate jungle gym. Like as a 7-year-old, you looked at that and went, oh, "I'm fucking climbing."
That's everything.
But I think I was also with like my sister and like her older like male friends. So like we ended up like breaking into like the high school and like running around and just like being kids and shit. And then afterwards went and played on the playground. And I just remember being like, this is bad, isn't it? This is fun. So yeah, trespassing.
Cool. Jesse, what'd you steal?
You
said theft.
I was at a shoe store that had a child section with toys, and they had a Snoopy that was dressed up like Dracula that was standing next to a gravestone with the bird on it.
So you just snatched it?
I just wanted it, so I took it. I wasn't
Put it in your pocket?
had to have been like 3 because I didn't think anything of it, and I remember when I got home showing it to my parents, like, look what I got. Like I was so excited, and they're like, what the hell? And then they immediately got really upset with me, and then I had to go back the next day and return it, and then they were like, you can have it if you want, and I was like, really? And I was like, no, and then I was like, crime doesn't pay.
That's hilarious. Mine's actually
That's how you learn.
like 5, 4, 5. I don't remember. I remember being at like Kmart with my mom, looking at some sunglasses. They were orange and had black, like whatever this is called.
The wings of the glasses.
The wings of the glasses, and they were cool shades. And I was like, "Mom, I want these," and she was like, "No." So then I just put them in her purse, and then we left the store and we got in the car, and she looked in her purse and was like, "Where did these? Did you?" And I was like, "Put them in your purse." And then she's like, "We're going back in," and I just started sobbing. I was like, "No, anything but this." And then we returned. Or no. We went home, and I got to keep them. I just remembered.
You're like, crime does pay.
Crime does pay. Which
So
is probably why I was
sometimes-
such a devious
Yeah.
shithead for so long.
You and Jesse literally had opposite endings.
Yeah.
All right. In honor of this being the longest podcast, we'll be consistent with
Probably.
the ones that are also long. Oh, it's definitely going to be the longest.
I assume you won't cut out that.
No.
You'll probably cut out
I
that
think
stuff.
most of what we talked about was pretty pertinent to what was important to talk about with this film. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But real quick, just say something you've seen recently and how it affected you in a few sentences or less.
wait, will you go first?
Yeah, I
ahead.
just watched Fanny and Alexander, the 5-hour television cut. Actually, 5-hour and 20-minute television cut. Ingmar Bergman's made-to-be final film, but he ended up making a couple more after that. It is a incredibly, beautifully tragic film. It pains me to the core. Like, it is one of the most digging through the garbage in the gutter depresso movies that ever made, and yet it has these moments of profound joy littered throughout and moments of profound magic, and it's literally all of Bergman's movies wrapped into one, and of course it takes 5.5 hours for him to do that. Still think it's more impressive that Persona does it in 80 minutes, but that's another day, another discussion.
Good.
Fanny and Alexander, great flick.
I, not too long after Goodfellas, watched Rififi.
Hooah!
Classic French crime movie
Good
that
crime
you
movie.
both need to see ASAP.
I put it toward the top of my watch list.
It's dope. Like, not the full 5-er. Could see it happening on a rewatch, but was pretty entertained and enthralled the whole time. I wish there was a little more time with the setup, but from like the heist on, basically a perfect movie. It's a heist movie. If that wasn't clear just now. It's very cool. Got a lot of nice elements, a lot of drama. Feels like a proto Heat. Like, totally got that vibe. Like a Michael Mann, more specifically. Not necessarily Heat, because there's no like cop criminal element. Is there?
In Heat?
I'm leaving. Just Rafifi, fucking cool. Fits in with everything we've been discussing forever. You should check it out. Brandon?
I've been really slacking lately on the movie tip. I haven't seen anything recently. I have been rewatching the Avatar series. However, I have been playing a video game that is truly, truly, truly cinematic upon the second gameplay, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh, nice.
I heavily recommend it. It feels like I am just watching a Western play out. So might not be a conventional recommendation, but I implore everyone to, if you're not gonna play it, then at least watch some gameplay of it, because it is a movie that you play with your own hands. I promise.
Cool. Anybody got anything they need to say about any of this shit?
I don't think Martin Scorsese is racist, and I like Goodfellas, but America has got problems.
Fuck you, pay me.
Gabagool. I had nothing planned to say.
Funny how.
All right,
I love the cut when he's doing something and it hard cuts to the man running with the bloody rag.
Oh, that
and
is
it's
a- that is
Henry's
a-
first time seeing
yeah.
someone shot. Thelma's an expert editor.
And
This
the freeze
is the
frame on the
shit.
explosion at
Fucked
the beginning.
Dances with wolves.
Kevin
I'm
Costner lick Scorsese.
Frank.
I'm Jesse.
Brandon, thanks for tuning in to the Chronic Canon.
Once again, or for the first time.